You are live.
Good afternoon, everybody. The earpiece has just fallen out. Everything's a disaster. I can't identify that bird. I think it is a dark chanting goshawk. That is what I'm going with. It is a beautiful, beautiful afternoon here in the northeast corner of South Africa. We are in the western fringes of the Kruger National Park, iconic national park of the world, part of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, which is 8 million acres of African wilderness wonderland. Now, you happen to be on a live safari. That means that we are broadcast live and unedited, which is probably how I get away with saying what I do half the time. My name is James Hendry. On camera today is Bryan the Thumb Joubert. Very nice. Thank you, Bryan. On the other vehicle is Scott. He's being filmed by the diminutive but highly skilled Wium Durenbrach. And in the final control on the vocals is Kirsten, and on the keys, I believe, is Leanne. Now, let us look at that bird again, and I'll tell you why I've identified it the way I have. There are only two birds that could possibly be. One is the dark chanting goshawk, the other is the gabar goshawk. Both have got slightly orangish pinkish legs and an orangish pinkish cere. The cere is the kind of, well, it's that sort of colourful bit that goes over the nostrils, really. That is what the cere is. And the other thing to look for is the barring on the chest, not the chest, on the belly. Now, the only real difference between these two birds, colour-wise, or morphologically, if you like, is the size. A gabar goshawk is 30 centimetres long, which is about a foot, and a dark chanting goshawk is 50 centimetres long, so it's almost twice the size. You'd think they'd be easy to identify. I always think they're going to be until I look at them, and then I find myself confused. And I'm doubting myself even as I say this, because as the sun comes out and shines onto that bird, his legs look a lot more orangey than they do pink, which would indicate that he is a gabar goshawk. Oh gosh, Bryan, how tall do you think he is? You think he's 30 centimetres or 50 centimetres?
50. I'm going with the 50.
I'm going with 50 as well. Shall we move on before we can... Oh, well, you know, the other thing we can look at, everyone, is his eyes. His eyes look pretty red, unlike the... Well, yeah, let's just go with the gabar for now. I'm going to stick a little bit of time with him. Please do ask us questions throughout the course of the drive. Hashtag SafariLIVE, questions at wildearth.tv. And while you're thinking about what to say to me about this bird, let's head across to Scott Dyson. He is with some primates.
Hello, everyone. And I'm glad you got a glimpse of that vervet monkey just after it quenched its thirst here at the Djuma Waterhole. We thought we'd stop off here for the start of the safari because I know a lot of you will be missing the view of the Djuma Waterhole camera, which is situated in a tree just to our right. So we are simulating the kind of regular view that you would have if this camera was working. But don't worry, our tech team is on it. They're doing everything in their power to try and resolve the problems there, and I'm hoping that in the next couple of days it will be back up. Now, as you can see, the two resident hippos that have been spending time here are still here. There's one buffalo, not as many as are kind of usually here, but I'm sure they'll come and go as the afternoon unfolds. A couple of oxpeckers jumping around that buffalo's back. Now, there were some yellow-billed oxpeckers in the area earlier, which are rare to see relative to the red-billed oxpeckers, which we can see here. So we'll keep an eye out for them. I think they may have moved off, though. They are very clearly distinguishable from these. Oh, the hippo's reshuffling, repositioning. Hence the small waves being created there. I'm sure a lot of you are happy to start off the safari with James's dark chanting goshawk. That's not a bird we get to see very often, so well done to him for locating that. Now, the plans for this vehicle for this afternoon are to head off towards the last position of the 5 Nkuhumas lioness, which are probably only about 5 minutes away from us. They were left right on our northern boundary, so there is a chance they may have moved across into an area where we cannot see them. They are also in a very low signal area, so I'm hoping that we are going to be able to get some views of them, together with having signal if they are still here on Djuma. One thing I forgot to mention is that my name is Scott, for those of you who may be joining for the first time, and I'm teamed up with Wium, aka the wildebeest, on camera. Hello Mark, and I'm just going to reverse quickly for you, because you would like to know if these hippos are not fighting for territories because they are juveniles, and there's nothing juvenile about them that I can see. They are both big hippos, and I think it's merely the fact that it's a drought and that times are desperate that they are tolerating one another. They probably have realized that there's nothing really worth fighting for other than their lives at the moment. No ladies, and I think because they are in this kind of desperate times, they are just dealing with one another. The intricacies to why exactly they are accepting one another's presence, I cannot answer, but I can assure you that they are definitely not juveniles. Let's take a quick look at the greater blue-eared starling here. It's glistening beautifully. Look at that in the afternoon sunlight. And isn't it fascinating how many animals are relying on this little source of water? Oh, a Burchell starling just flew in and chased them off. You big bully. Not even that it wants to have a drink there. It landed just up on the right there in the bush. Well done. It's a slightly bigger starling. You can also see it iridescing in the sunshine. And let's do one more bird while we're here. It's one that you don't get to see very easily, very often. They're quite skittish. It's just walking along the opposite side of the dam there, Wium. There we go. An emerald. Oh, look at its emerald windows glistening when the sun connects at the right angle. That was awesome, and it's something, I guess, that we don't get to see very often, that emerald sheen from the emerald-spotted wood doves. Look at that. Like little jewels on its wings. It's a tiny dove, this one, about half the size of the regular ones, but one of my favorites. This and the Namakwa dove are small, but very pretty. Now, this is fascinating. I think it's scared of drinking, and you saw those little ripples there in front of it. Try and keep the water. There we go. Now, a terrapin could quite easily snatch a small bird like this out of the water, pull it under, and devour it. Oh, and that's why it is so nervous being there. You may have seen a small ripple, and I'm wondering if that wasn't a little terrapin trying to latch onto it. Good point. That's just been brought up from Joyce in Pennsylvania. And I know, Matt, you said that we're asking why these two aren't fighting. There is a chance that one could be a female. Let's look at the one on the left first. It's not going to be easy to show you because they're not lying at the perfect angles, but the head of the one on the left is longer and bigger than the individual's head on the right. And that indicates to me that the one on the left could well be a male, and that the one on the right could well be a female. Oh, hello, boy. You heard us talking about you, and you're acknowledging that, yes, you are the big daddy, and that this is your girlfriend. Fair enough. Fair enough. Apologies. We were not instigating that the other one was your boyfriend. We were merely unsure whether it was a boy or a girl. But thank you for helping to confirm, yes, that it is in fact a lady, and she's very pretty. We just can't see enough of her face, although she's rolling over, Wium. Let's see if we can't get this. Whoa. Ah, much more ladylike. And now I can really see that she has got a considerably smaller head than his. So thank you, Joyce in Pennsylvania. The joy of being on a live safari with thousands of people is that if you do make mistakes, you get quickly corrected, or even if you don't make a mistake, you merely do not make an observation as good as those around you. You can get very quickly corrected. So thank you for that. All right, right, it is a beautiful afternoon. Oh, well spotted, Wium. We can't get away from this waterhole. The action's all unfolding here. There's some baby oxpeckers having a bath. The babies don't have the bright red beak and yellow eye just yet. It's developing slowly, but it's not as prominent. There we go. There's an even younger one. Oh, settle down. And they're enjoying what is quite a muddy bath, but I guess it must be so cooling and refreshing. Here come more. We're in for a treat. Look at the one sweating there, holding its beak wide open. By sweating, I mean panting, keeping cool. Pool party! And an absolute hive of activity. Now, Donna in South Carolina, you ask a very good question, and you'd like to know where are all the weaver birds that we usually see. And because there's not much water around, Donna, I guess they've moved elsewhere. The village weavers that we saw last summer at Treehouse Waterhole were they need to nest above water. It's one of their prerequisites for their accommodation and their nesting. They always nest above water. So when there's no water to nest above, they don't nest here. Interestingly, the village weaver is the one on the bottom right. Okay, so these are the ones that we saw here last year. And let me just double check that I wasn't talking rubbish. It says coarsely woven nests, usually suspended from a tree or in reeds, often over water. I guess, okay, so it's not always over water, but they prefer to have it over water. Interestingly, just before you came to us, I saw a southern masked weaver come and join us at the waterhole here. So I did see one of these just a few minutes before. They're very difficult to tell apart. Basically, you can see how the black crown extends upwards from the beak onto the forehead, whereas the village weaver, the black crown kind of ends at the base of the beak. It doesn't extend up onto the forehead. Other than that, they look just about the same to me. But I did see a southern masked weaver. So the weavers are around. We're just not entirely sure where their nests are at the moment. Oh, there's one last bird I want to... Oh, hello. Getting comfy. They sure can cast a very evil death stare when they want to, the Cape Buffalo. They make me feel like I'm a naughty schoolboy. Good, so we're going to leave him to it and continue on. The bird you can hear calling is a Burchell starling. It's quite a robotic call, and it was directly above us. There it goes again. Beautiful clouds in the sky. Oh, Wium, quickly on the left here. We're so close. Oh, no. We were so close to those yellow-billed oxpeckers. They just popped out from the other side of this buffalo, but we are going to go back to show them to you because they are so different. Are we ever going to get away from this waterhole? I'm not sure. Huh. The oxpeckers are hiding on the other side of the buffalo. Maybe they are a little bit camera shy. They're still on it.
A little bit.
Sorry?
Feed them a little bit.
Okay, oh, now they've come up. They're dodging us, but we will get you, yellow-billed oxpeckers. Maybe not. Bear with me, everyone. I'm not going to give up until we get you a view of the oxpecker. Ah, there you hiding in the shade, you sneaky things. As I would be. Uh-oh, no, the buffalo's not too impressed with our behavior. But there they are. Look at that. What an awesome shot. And well done, Wium. Finally, you can see the yellow-billed oxpecker also does have red on its bill, so its name can be a little bit misleading. Just going to roll roll forward ever so slightly. They are very clever, these birds. They're choosing the shaded side of the buffalo. There we go. Just parking off in the shade, and that's why we couldn't see them earlier on the other buffalo. They were just clinging on with their zygodactyl foot structure, 2 toes forward, 2 toes backwards, unlike a lot of birds who have got 3 toes forward and 1 toe back. And aren't they incredibly talented when it comes to clambering around? Oh. Sorry, Mr. Buffalo. You didn't like the sound of us creaking forward then. The vintage jigger. All right, well, we are going to venture forth and go and check out what these lions are up to. And while we do that, we're going to send you back over to Mr. Henry to see how his safari is coming along.
Now, you'll find us here in the far reaches of Arathusa. Arathusa, of course, the Pedi word, or northern Sotho word for help, and there are zebra. Let us view them. He looks like a particularly impressive zebra, that one. So impressive that he isn't even a he. He's a she. Don't run, don't run, don't run. There we go. Look at the beautiful little foal. Probably about 2 months old, maybe even less. He's a very tiny little fellow. His mum looks in pretty good nick. And that's what she thinks of us. Wonderful. It's nice to see that her kidneys are still working, don't you think, Bryan?
Splendid.
It is splendid. It is always good to see that an animal's kidneys are in good function. I'm not sure what else to say about that, other than the fact that that is obviously a female, and that is its youngster, and they have been... Despite the drought, the zebras still seem to be in pretty good condition. If you look at the female's neck there, the mare's neck, her mane is standing up on end. It's not lying down, which means the fat reserves in her neck are still fine. She hasn't used them all up yet, and therefore she's fine. Now, the little one is trying to suckle. Gee whiz, that's amazing. I've always thought with horses, in fact with most of the animals out here, the angles at which the youngsters have to twist their heads in order to have a meal is quite astonishing. Isn't that sweet? And then as the little one suckles, of course, it's also a lot more gentle than many of the animals out here. Lots of them, especially things like the impala and the nyala, they get hold of the mother's teat and they absolutely tear at it. And it looks to be the most incredibly painful thing in the world. Luckily, the zebra foal is very much more gentle than most of the other young herbivores. Just a little bit younger than the one we saw killed 2 nights ago by the Nkuhumas pride. And some very clever viewer, I forget exactly who it was, posted the fact she actually did a striped comparison of the injured zebra foal that was seen firstly at the... sorry, I've just heard a bird shouting. It was a lilac-breasted roller. Firstly, this hapless zebra foal was seen with a broken leg at the Djuma Dam Pan, and then again, not the same day on Game Drive. And we think, pretty much sure, actually, having seen those screenshots of the stripe pattern, that it was that little one that was killed by the lions. So, weakness immediately picked up by those lions. Like I say, a very beautiful afternoon. The clouds have, well, they've split apart a bit, allowing a little bit of sunlight through, which I think is wonderful. It's not too hot. It's about 34 degrees or 35 degrees Celsius, 93 degrees Fahrenheit, which is actually very pleasant for this time of year. And I think that we have broken the back of the really nasty heat going into March, we'll start to get slightly more autumnal temperatures. It certainly won't be cold, but there'll be a little bit more autumnal. Now, the rest of the kinship group to which that mare and the foal belong is over here. And we call a zebra's social structure a kinship group. There's the stallion, his wives, and their youngster. And what I've always found amazing is that when a young stallion wishes to claim some wives for himself, what he does is he challenges an older stallion. And if he beats him up, his wives will, or the older stallion's wives will remain faithful, but his daughters will then normally go off with the challenger. But his old wives will remain with the old boy, well, pretty much for life, but I suppose if he gets totally decrepit, they might move on. It's quite I've always quite liked that story. Look at those stripes. Look at the stripes as the little foal moves. You can actually see the little bump there underneath the stomach, and that's from the umbilical cord. Very sweet. And very autumnal colours already in this particular area. The green is not very green. You can see it all turning slightly yellow, and a lot of the trees are actually even losing their leaves now, which is much too early. Normally that would only happen in the autumn and the winter, of course. And this is my favourite zebra species. We get 4 different species around the place. This is my favourite one because it looks most like a horse, I suppose. The rest tend to look like donkeys. And, well, donkeys, much maligned in history, of course. They're not my idea of the most attractive animal in the world. Yours, Bryan?
Not really.
And donkey is the, yes, it's a poor equid, really. Let's sneak a little bit forward. Beautiful that you saw a yellow-billed oxpecker at the pan. Not many of them around, of course. Now, we are on the very far western fringes of Arathusa, like I say, and our plan is to just try and basically see what we can find here. I've got no updates from what happened here this morning, so we'll just be on a little voyage of discovery, and as we often say, anything can happen around any corner. Quite a lot of the time, nothing happens around every corner, but that's okay. It's still a very beautiful place to be. And I must say, even despite the fact that there is this drought and the grass is sparse and the leaves are wilting, you can find beauty just about everywhere you look here, if you know what to look for. Right, let's just sneak slowly forward. I did see that lilac-breasted roller hunting around here. We'll just sneak forward if we can see that magnificent little lilac-breasted roller. Ah, now Steph, you want to know about the 4 species of zebra. You've got 3 of them right. You said the plain zebra, which is what this one is. The one is the Hartmann's mountain zebra, which you got, which was found in Namibia largely, and then you get the Cape mountain zebra, which is unsurprisingly found in the Cape here. And the other one is an interesting fellow called a Giraffes zebra, and it's the only zebra that doesn't live in these kinship groups. It's got very closely spaced striping, and it also looks a bit like a donkey rather than a horse, and it lives up in East Africa, and it has a totally different social structure, where it's a bit like an impala, really, where you get little bachelor groups, and then you get a dominant territorial stallion. These stallions are not territorial at all. They've just got home ranges. He's got a dominant territorial stallion and a sort of harem of females, and he can be challenged at any stage, and the young males go off and live in bachelor herds. So this is a slightly different sort of structure to the one that they have here. But the Giraffes zebra I've never seen. I know it's Scott's favourite zebra. You see him up in East Africa, but not over here. We only get the plain zebra or Burchell zebra out here in southern Africa, at least in eastern Africa. Eastern southern Africa in the Kruger National Park. I'm getting horribly tongue-tied, Bryan. Must be the heat. You see, I attempted to wash my hat today, Brian.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Oh.
You didn't notice, did you?
No, it looks the same.
I'm starting to feel that I may well have to buy a new one. Now, David, on YouTube, I'm not sure I understand your question, but I'm going to try very hard to answer it. You want to know how tall is the back of a zebra, not how tall it is. I'm not really sure how to answer that, except to say that at the shoulder, so if you measure a zebra at the shoulder, it'll stand about, well, if we do it in horse language, about 14.2, and about 14.2 is probably about 1.6 meters, or 5'5" at the shoulder, and then sloping down to the back, probably about half a foot shorter than that, so about 5 foot, I guess, a really big zebra. Does that answer your question, David? If it doesn't, please feel free to send through another one. I'll tell you what you could do. You could draw a sort of sketch of a zebra, if you like, take a picture of it, tweet it through, and tell us which dimension you want to know. Might work. Now, like I say, heading down the eastern, at least the western fringes of Arathusa, and we're often asked about fire. And people often talk about fire, and they fear that a runaway fire might come through the area, especially as we're having a drought at the moment. And if you look at this area here to the left of us, Brian, you can see that the tops of the trees, I've just got to check that I'm still on the property here, but the tops of the trees have got no leaves on them. Now that is particularly important. I'm just going to have to reverse slightly. I'm trespassing. I should have taken the other road. We're now on Elephant Plains, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your game drive on Elephant Plains. Did you notice the difference, Brian?
I did.
So that's Elephant Plains. We're in it right now. We shouldn't be. We need to get out of here. Okay, I'm just going to turn that round. Turn that down. Phew, Brian, that was close, wasn't it?
That was fantastic.
Isn't it? As in your heart rate racing, absolutely exhilarating to perform a crime and then get away with it. Whew. Okay, back to the fire story. If we look at the trees over here, you can see the tops of them have got no leaves on them. Now that's because it was burned, but only 2 years ago. But the bottom of the trees, they're all growing just fine, and that's called coppicing. And coppicing is what happens when a tree is killed on the top layer, the rootstock survives, and then it grows up from that bottom layer. And we're often asked about fire, like I say, and especially at a time like this in the drought, and people often want to know, well, what happens if a fire comes through here? A fire really could not come through here. At this stage, there's no grass, and so nothing would burn. These trees wouldn't burn at all. They might be killed by a very severe fire underneath the ground, and not underneath the ground, in the grass. But they wouldn't actually be enough to sustain a big burn. So, no risk of fire in the area now. Pulling myself out here, Brian. It's a disaster. Right, I'm back in. Now, what we're going to do is head to a little pan over here, and we'll see what we can find at the water there. Scott, on the other hand, is with some heartbeats, albeit they're very slow and relaxed, and we'll cross over to him, and I'll see you at the water there.
Well, we are in luck. And the Nkuhumas pride are still on Djuma, only just. They are probably about 15 meters south of our southern boundary, our northern boundary, which for those of you who are new to SafariLIVE is merely a road, and it keeps people where they need to be. What gave you guys a fright? Was that just the wind? Incredible to see how fast their reactions were. And the wind is gusting. Fascinating. Here it really comes. You may even be able to hear it. Sorry, ladies. They got a huge fright. They're now holding their noses up into the wind. Wouldn't it be wonderful to know what they can smell with their powerful senses? As I was saying, the animals have freedom of moving wherever they like, and if they do decide to head north from this position, we sadly won't be able to view them. But as you can see, it doesn't look like they are going anywhere for the time being, and I'm guessing that they're not going to get active for at least another hour and a half or 2 hours, and it may be that they're still in the same place by the end of this sunset safari. We were hugely fortunate this morning. We got to see them. We found them probably 5 minutes into the safari, if that, and then followed them basically on the move up until right at the end of the safari. We saw them playing with one another, climbing trees, chasing buffalo, buffalo chasing them, and it was another magical morning spent with them. But I think for now, as you can all see, we're going to probably be able to go and invest our efforts elsewhere and see what else we can find. Dave Dungan, you're right, it has been an incredibly productive few days regarding quality sightings of lions, and I've kept telling everyone, as long as we keep spending a lot of time with these animals, investing time with them, we are going to build up credits and eventually get lucky and get spoiled with some good quality sightings. So I know it's often myself who says, you need to be patient, and then 10 minutes later we're leaving the sighting. But where possible, it is really worth spending time with these animals. But for now, I haven't seen any other prey in the area. And even though some prey could stumble upon them and we could miss out on some action, I feel that it's going to be worth driving around. There's obviously a lot of other animals out here that we can see and enjoy, especially while the lions are asleep. But let's just take another quick look at them. You can see they're breathing quite quickly. That'll be due to the heat, and they're trying to obviously pant to keep cool. They're quite fast, breathing rate. But they're not incredibly full-bellied. If anything, you could say medium. They fed on a zebra foal not yesterday evening, the evening before. So they're by no means starving. You could say content, but this evening I think they are going to be motivated to try and fill those bellies up again. So let's hope that they head deeper into Djuma when we can at least get to see what they get up to. Mike in Florida, you would like us to carry on? I was waiting for somebody to give me permission. Thank you very much. You can see I didn't waste any time there. Woohoo, let's go. And you would like us to go and find the kingfishers. Now, for those of you who don't know Mike in Florida, he is at the moment leading the ornithological challenge and has got the most birds on his bird list. I think it's 230 something. And as we continue trying to find you a new bird for your list, Mike, we're going to send you over to James, who's got one of the regular customers regarding the avian species. Enjoy.
It is very, very seldom that we get a spectacular view like this of a grey go-away bird. And it is normally a frugivorous bird, which means it likes to eat fruit. But today, it is eating the new shoots of, well, it's a tree called Gymnosporia senegalensis, which is very rich in tannins. And, certainly to the human palate, very bitter and not very nice at all. But to the grey go-away bird in times of drought, it's clearly something that's quite useful to eat. Only taking the sort of smallest leaves, and maybe they've got slightly less tannin than the others. But it is so tannin-rich in many respects that it can actually numb your mouth. It always amazes me how they manage to maneuver themselves around in the trees like that without getting their wings stuck. And the technical facility and strength that it takes for them to hop from one branch to another like that is absolutely incredible. If you think about that, If you think about, that's him, that's why it's called a go-away bird. If you think about jumping your own body height onto a block or onto a wall and then balancing there, it would be totally impossible. And we watch birds hopping around and we think, oh, well, that's not that impressive. And it is actually astonishing. Now, this grey go-away bird is not alone here. You see, Bryan?
Not at all.
Not at all, Bryan. He has two friendies. Two very large friendies. There we go. That is, of course, the infamous Cape buffalo or African buffalo. Infamous because they are renowned, apparently, for being the most dangerous of animals to meet on foot. This, of course, is unsurprising, as the legend comes from those who like to hunt them. And if you try and hunt a buffalo, then it becomes very cross with you indeed, and why shouldn't it? If you are not, however, harassing it, you can normally view them relatively safely on foot. Although, that said, we did have an experience the other day, Steph and Bryan and I, where we were watching some buffalo at quite a distance. We'd often walked past them. I think probably those buffalo you saw earlier at the Djuma Dam Pan. And they kind of gathered in a phalanx and they started heading towards us from about 60 meters out, which was quite a big distance. Anyway, we disappeared quite quickly and they left us alone in the end. And we seem to be catching animals really at this sort of wrong time, all of them doing...
You got it, Wium. It's coming under this tree in the grass there. It's just reared up. We've got a black mamba, everyone. There it goes. Look at how quick it is. This is incredible. It's about 2 meters in length, not the biggest we've seen, but look at how quick it is. Absolutely awesome, and it slithered down a hole. We got it just in time, and a big thank you. Oh, no, it hasn't. There it keeps going. Look at how fast it is. I thought it had gone down a hole. Oh, no. There it is. Where'd it go? Let's race after it. Ah! I can't start the car fast enough. I think it's just disappearing off now into a thicket. How quickly did it cover that ground? Whew, it's gone. And that was a rush. Kirsty, thank you for bringing everyone back onto our vehicle so quickly. And sorry to rush you guys into the mayhem there, but how awesome was that? We've got a big thank you to a few little birds, rattling cisticolas and a few scrub robins that were alarm calling, tweet, 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 tweet. And we thought, should we go back? Shouldn't we go back? Should we go and see what's going on? And it paid off, thanks to Wium, who spotted the black mamba. And that is probably our third, fourth, fifth sighting of one of the most deadly snakes in southern Africa at the moment. You do not want to be bitten by one of those. They've got a neurotoxic venom that basically shuts down the nervous system. The good news is if somebody can breathe for you, you can stay alive for many hours. So that's an important thing to remember. If you are bitten by a black mamba, don't panic. Just tell people that you need just some breathing apparatus, even if you lose the ability to breathe for yourself, as long as somebody just keeps getting oxygen going into your body, and you can take your time to get to hospital and then get the necessary treatments. Anyway, thank you for coming back. We are going to continue racing over towards Sydney's Waterhole, where Brent has found some hippo who appear to be having an altercation. So we'll call you when we get there, but for now, back to James.
Well, what a very appropriate time for you to have gone across to see that spectacular snake. This buffalo has just gone to the loo. I think he's finished now, and so we can continue talking about him. He is, of course, he and his companion covered in mud. They've been lying in this black sort of oozing mud for the whole day, cooling down and enjoying the protection that the mud offers them from parasites and the like. You can see they always look slightly depressed, I find. He's just shaken an oxpecker off his head. The oxpecker's looking a bit offended on the floor, standing its ground. The buffalo's staring it down. Not even sure if you can see it. Can you see it there, Bryan? It's actually quite amusing from my angle. Another oxpecker's there. Let's just sneak a little bit forward. Now, James Richard, you say that I tend to be a bit of a rebel when I'm in Arathusa, that I don't do borders. James Richard, yes, that's true, but it's unintentional. I'm obviously just lacking in a certain fine-tuning of my directional sense out here. It was just a very small wrong turn that I took twice. Both times I've been down here. The other day I ended up at a waterhole that I'd never seen before. I shan't tell you which property I was on, but it wasn't either Arathusa or Djuma. Very embarrassing. And here is a rubbing post. What I would like to do is just see if there isn't something stuck in it in the way of an ectoparasite. I don't really want to get out here, though. Now, what these rubbing posts often have in them is ticks embedded in the mud. So the ticks get onto the buffalo roll in the mud dries, and you've seen how clay contracts when it gets dry. It makes those, when the water leaves it, it contracts and it sucks the ticks off the skin, and they then rub the mud off onto these rubbing posts, and there are often ticks stuck in the mud there. I can't see any there at the moment, though. Okay. Bryan, I think that this waterhole has given us all that it's going to today. Let us continue. I've yet to see a black mamba here, which is a bit of a pity because they are tremendously impressive snakes. Scott has seen 2, at least, while he's been live. In fact, I don't think I've seen a snake live at all. Jamie's seen 3. Jamie doesn't count, though, because she sees everything. Now, Tony, you're in London, and you, like Brent and I, certainly are an enormous wild dog fan, and you say, where are the dogs? We haven't seen them for several days. The last we heard, they were in the far west, as far as I can tell. We don't know which pack that was. It's not unusual not to see them for several days. It's not unusual not to see them for up to a month at a time, sometimes 2 months. They roam so widely, and so they will be wherever the prey is most abundant. And I wonder if they haven't headed further off to the east into the Kruger, where, of course, things are really a bit tougher than they are here. Very little artificial water, which means that a lot of the herbivores there are going to be struggling, and it's probably very easy pickings for a pack of wild dogs in that area at the moment. So that's where I think the dogs are. They're certainly not right around where we are now, are they, Bryan? No, they are not. There's an impala, Bryan. Just stop and view him. Except he is hiding now behind a bushel. Let's go forward. Sometimes it's just not your day. I think we found the only solitary impala at Arathusa, everybody. The only solitary and, well, pathologically shy impala at Arathusa. CJ, you want to know if I have a favourite venomous snake? I'm not sure that I do have a favourite venomous snake, CJ. Snakes and I have a relationship that couldn't be described as the closest. I'm not an enormous lover of snakes. I can appreciate their amazing beauty and their amazing biology, but I'm no snake wrangler. So, in terms of venomous snakes, no, I don't think I have a particular favourite. Maybe a boomslang or a tree snake. Very beautiful they are, beautiful colours, and tremendously skilled, and they're quite shy too, of course, which means they're unlikely to stick their fangs into you, which is always an advantage. The most common venomous snake we get here, I would suspect would be one of 2 things. One of either the puff adder or the Mozambican spitting cobra, one of three. Spitting cobra, snouted cobra, or a puff adder. I suspect you will find that a puff adder is probably the most common. Yes, now I'm really pleased about this. I told you. Scott is at Sydney's Dam and he's going to confirm what so many of you doubted me for. Have a look.
Now, I sadly cannot take responsibility for confirming just yet that there are in fact crocodiles here. If Wium zooms out a little bit, he'll be able to show you Brent and Aubrey parked on the water's edge there. Their much closer vantage point is allowing them a view of these crocodiles, which I'm told are quite small and close to the dam wall, which is on the opposite side to us. Sadly though, it's just too far for us to see. But well done, James. I am very impressed that with the oldest binoculars on the planet, he managed to decipher that there was in fact crocodiles in here. Now, the two hippos who are busy having a debate are the one that you can see on the left, out of the kind of water, ankle deep, and the one to its right. Now, what usually happens, not dissimilar to human boxing matches, is that you have breathers in between rounds. We don't know how many rounds they've been at it for now, but they're just taking a break. That will change, I guess, at some point. I've watched a handful of hippo fights in my life, and like I said, they increase hugely in intensity for a couple of minutes and then subside, let one another catch their breath, and then they go at it again. They can be hugely violent. They've got massive, massive teeth that can lacerate their opponent's hide and flesh, and there's often a lot of blood to be seen. The mouths also often bleed quite heavily because they tear one another's palates and mouth parts open with one another's teeth. They kind of basically can open their mouths about 180 degrees, and there's a lot of head-on conflict. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. Brent did say, though, before we got you, that they were really going at it. So I think it's going to be worth hanging around here, because the last time I got to see a hippo fight was probably this time last year, when two hippo bulls were fighting at the Djuma Waterhole. Not the tiny little pond where we started off the afternoon safari, but a much larger body of water that is currently bone dry, sadly, due to the drought. I know you've been discussing that with James. Now, you may be wondering again why we are not parked near the water's edge. It's not because I'm scared of hippopotamus, but you do need to respect them. They are one of... Ooh, is there some action unfolding here, maybe? Are we in luck? What is going to happen? This may be ding, 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 round 3. Here we go. Listen to that. You can probably even hear them calling from here. Look at them wagging their tails, not in excitement, but to spray their own feces. It's a territorial and dominance display, fanning their poop far and wide, as well as opening their mouths very wide and displaying their teeth. I'm sure they're going to make contact shortly. You can maybe hear a few low bellowing grunts coming from these two. Oh my God. Certainly thought about it, but again, they may have been fighting all day, and this fight may take a long time to deduce who in fact is the winner. And we're probably going to find hippos and a lot of the animals becoming a lot more aggressive with one another as the drought continues, especially with the animals that rely so heavily on water. Surely something's got to give here. They're just getting too close. And one of them, I'm sure, will lurch forward at some point. As I was saying, though, they are north of our northern boundary, so we're kind of spying on them from the border. And that is why I can't take you any closer. Apologies for that. The grey go-away bird's calling nearby. Quack. Hello, Lynn. You've mentioned that you are surprised by the fact that there are not actually more hippo fights than what we are seeing due to the lack of water. And it is very true. I guess a contributing factor to that is that we don't really see any hippo, therefore it's difficult to see us, for us to see them fighting. There could be a lot of fights going on Buffalo's Hook, the property to the north of us, where there is a lot more water, where I'm sure all of the hippos that would ordinarily be on Djuma, if it was a regular summer. So, yeah, I don't think we can assume that the hippos are not fighting simply because we are not seeing them. Even if we did have access to areas with more hippos, it may simply be just bad luck. We only spend 6 hours out of 24 every day on safari. So there are large chunks of things going on here that we are actually missing. Well, I'm very happy that Patrick has decided to place $10 on the hippo on the left. Patrick, I'm also backing the hippo on the left. Why? I'm not too sure. Maybe it's just because it looked bigger from the outset, because it was standing a little bit more out of the water than the one out on the right. Having said that, though, it is the one on the right that kind of approached the one on the left. Therefore, not showing any signs of kind of giving into it. But then again, maybe that's because it was the one that ran off initially. Time will tell. I'm not planning on racing off just yet, and I think it will be worth us investing some time here to see if we can't see any action between these two beasts, because like I said, it can be quite a colossal affair when these animals get going with one another. James Taylor, you mentioned that if the one out of the two here win, will the third hippo then step up for the challenge? And that's a very good question. I'm not sure if it is another male. It's possibly a female. Again, only time will tell. It'll be interesting to see, though, certainly. You may be wondering what those massive clumps of twigs are in the trees, but I'll tell you when you come back, because you need to go off and see some animals that James has just found for you.
Pigs, everybody, pigs. Wart pigs or warthogs, a particular favourite for many, many people. And I really enjoy them a great deal. I find them very character-filled. And, well, they're just stout, brave fellows, really. And what we have here is a sounder consisting of at least one sow. I'd say there were 2 sows here and her attendant offspring. Probably from December time. They look about a few months old. I think there's another sow behind the tree then. That cannot be all her babies, surely. Just go a little bit forward and see if there isn't another sow there. Otherwise, she has got a seriously impressive litter, especially if she's... No, there's the other sow. She's behind there. There we go. And I suspect what you'll find is that they live in that termite mound quite close by there. We had an amazing experience last night with those lions that were trying to dig dig some warthogs out of their termite mound burrow. It was fascinating to watch. They didn't get any in the end. And then Of course, the greatest specialist warthog killer that we know of in this area is Tingana, and Wayne, you want to know where he is. 9-year-old male leopard, magnificent fellow that he is. I don't know where he is. The last we saw of him, he was mating with Tundi, who is Karula's daughter and sister, and Shadow's sister, of course, on Djuma itself, way out of her territory, pretty much within his territory, on the border between his and Mvula's territories. We haven't found him since then. I think he went south with her across the southern border, and he's probably lurking around there sometime. We're kind of now in the border regions between his territory and the Anderson male's territory. We are in Tingana's territory, but the Anderson male has been seen forging this far east. Anyway, either of them would absolutely do us. Now, warthogs, as we've said before, are the most susceptible mammals to a drought at the moment because those tiny little legs, while explosively fast over a short distance, are no good for migrating. We're not far from the Arathusa Dam, where we've just crossed over. And you know the water is almost finished in there. It's quite a disturbing thing to see. So those warthogs will still be going down there for a drink on a daily basis. And when that dries, the next water closest to here, I suppose, well, there is a pan on the airstrip, which isn't too far from here, so they might go there. Otherwise, they're going to have to start heading south, down towards Londolozi, or perhaps a little bit east even. Now, I saw a European bee-eater fluttering through here. They don't really flutter, they more glide, I suppose. But we've lost sight of him. So this area too, if you look around, you can see looks a bit different from many of the others, and that's simply because it too burned 2 years ago, and it has not recovered because we haven't had much rain. That's not to say it's in bad health. Very angry, rattling testiculars. I'm just going to stop here. Bryan, I'm going to ask you to try. I know it's going to be difficult. Underneath this bush here, on the far end there, is a chagra. It's hopping around on the ground there. Oh, there, can you see it? It's actually quite a nice view, if we can get him. Got him. That is fantastic. Well, we can see him hopping. Looked like a black-crowned chagra to me. There he goes. A brown-crowned chagra, or three-streaked chagra used to be called. Beautiful call. It goes... He obviously didn't think that was a very good call. He's ignoring me completely. But the alarm calling you can hear is the rattling testicular. And I'm just going to go back a little bit because he's really upset. You can hear him shouting and shouting. And I wonder if this isn't a snake around here. Of course, this is what alerted Scott to the presence of the snake that he found. And we'll just see if there isn't some nasty reptile trying to get at one of the birds in the tree here. I don't see anything, I'm afraid. I don't see any black mamba. Right, we're staring straight into the sun. I think let's carry on. We're now heading to the southern reaches of Arathusa, and from whence we will go back towards Djuma. See what we can find there, given that Arathusa has not exactly delivered a great plethora of big game this afternoon. That is by no means an insult to what is a very beautiful property here at Arathusa. Let's head back to Scott. He's still at the water at Sydney's Dam. There's always something going on there.
So, the hippo appeared to have, for now, resolved their dispute. And the good news is that the crocodile has been seen, and there's an elephant that's just arrived behind us. It's no doubt going to walk straight past us when it does finally decide to continue towards the waterhole. So that's something to look forward to. VM just went psst, and there we go. So we're in for a treat and not a bad place to be waiting. While these hippos may possibly start fighting again, more animals like elephant, who knows, buffalo, lion, leopard could all come and drink. This is a major water source in this general area. But let's zoom in and see if we can't see a glimpse of the crocodile. It's very, very difficult to see, although now I can't even see it. It must have gone into stealth mode. But it was just to the right of that tiny little stump you can see in the water. So we'll keep an eye there. All you can see is a very faint outline of its head when it pokes its head out the water finally. Gail in Ohio, you would like to know if that kind of line that we can see across on the dam wall about midway up is the usual water level. Yes, I guess it is. I mean, I've only spent one summer season here, and even that summer season was a dry season, so it's been typically quite dry. Since my arrival here at Djuma, drier than normal. Oh, some impala have also popped in onto the scene, so it appears like the waterhole is becoming the place to be at the moment. The elephant's now to the right of the vehicle here, and all the action is coming to us. This is exactly how we like to safari, parked in the shade, waiting for everything to come to us. What a pleasure. This is a young boy. Could well be all on his own, or there could be a few more bulls on their way behind him. Fantastic. So, sorry, Gail, I can't give you huge insights into the kind of regular levels of this waterhole, but it usually just does rely on rainfall to fill itself up, and I guess it fluctuates greatly every year, just depending on the actual rainfall that falls. I can assure you now, though, that it is much lower than normal, as are all the Djuma waterholes empty, which is abnormal. Ah, Leanne, thank you very much for reminding me about the large clumps of twigs in those dead trees in the middle of the water. And you would like to know if they are in fact birds' nests. Well done. That is entirely correct. They are the nests of a sociable weaver called a red-billed buffalo weaver. Now, they don't appear hugely active to me at the moment. Oh no, I lie. The ones on the left, Wium, the tree on the far left, further left of that yard, you can see a few birds flutting around. There we go. So they are active, at least that apartment block of nests, and that essentially is what it is. It's an apartment block, each bird having their own chamber within that gigantic clump of twigs where they will nest. And what I'm going to do is, obviously it's incredibly far away from here, so I shall find you the picture of them in the book in order to show you what these birds look like. They can be great indicators if you are lost in the wilderness. They will often build their nests on the western side of trees when possible. In this case, that doesn't make a huge difference because they're not being shaded by any living portions of the tree. But if there was a tree that did still have a lot of leaves that would block out the sun, they would nest on the western side. So if you're lost in the bush, in general, they will nest where the sun is going to be setting so that the chicks can go to bed warm at night. Good. I'm surprised that the elephant hasn't gone straight down to the water's edge like the impala. I'm just keeping an eye on it. It's somewhere over there. But I'm sure it will continue making its way in that direction, maybe even if it's a roundabout way. Cindy in North Carolina, you would like to know if hippos have got a kind of valve or a flap of skin in their throat that prevents them from choking when underwater, much like a crocodile has. And no, not that I'm aware of. They merely close their mouth as well as their nostrils when they go underwater.
Very close to the narrow. There's a big,
So I don't think they have that ability.
Maybe stand by there. I'm on the south of the
But I cannot be certain. It's a good question, and if anybody knows or can confirm that I'm in fact wrong, please feel free to correct me.
I'm on diagonal now. There's a junction of a small road. Come again.
The impala finally found a spot that they think is safe to drink. It'll be hairy business for them, and I guess for good reason, now that we know that there is in fact a crocodile in here. The crocodile that I saw, it wasn't tiny, that's for certain, and it has actually just popped its head back up to the right of that little stump. Let's see if you can make out. Yeah, you can. You will be able to make out a very slight, ever so slight cut of almost like a rock sticking out to the right of that stump. Look at all the fish rising in the water, bubbling. Miss Lynn, you would like to know how far the crocodile would have had to walk in order to get here. It's a good question. They can cover huge distances, though, in search of water. But, oh, can you see the crocodile now? It's easier to see. It's swimming kind of in front of the log. You can definitely see some little bit of movements swimming towards us. Awesome. Maybe it's coming for these impala. It certainly looks like it's heading straight towards them, and maybe it's seen this as an opportunity to try and catch one. Imagine if we see a crocodile catching an impala live. That will be mind-boggling. And I've never actually seen a crocodile catch anything other than a terrapin once at Buffalo's Hook Waterhole, and that was between drives with Nikki. It chomped about 3 within 5 minutes. So, Lynn, crocodiles can move large distances out of water from one source to another. Where this one came from is hard to tell, but I'm guessing probably somewhere close to the Sand River, which is about 3 or 4 kilometers from here. What have you spotted there, Wium?
No, I got distracted by the giraffes.
Oh, where are the giraffes?
Okay.
Oh, look at those clouds. Awesome. And some giraffe have also arrived. This is the place to be. You can see, I think, 3 heads poking out. I'm sure they are going to continue out towards us. But then, like I say, the Sand River is probably about 4 miles south of our position, so probably, yeah, it would have had to move it at about 4 miles, possibly a little bit more, away from the river, and it would have been able to kind of leapfrog from one water source to another, before getting here, I'm guessing. Of course, now, if this dries up, which it could, then the crocodile's going to have a long, long journey to move, but they have been on the planet for many millennia and are very hardy creatures. So I don't think we have to worry too much about it getting from A to B. I can't see where it's disappeared to. Oh, no, I can. It's just on the right-hand side of, further right, Wium, quite close to the bank there. We can see it slap bang in the center of your screen, basically between us and the 2 birds that you can see on that little peninsula. You can just see its head poking ever so slightly out of the water. So it hasn't continued up to the impala, but they are animals of incredible stealth, so you need to be exceptionally aware of them. Looks like the giraffe have now come into a more favorable position. for Wium to film them. And quickly, Wium, there's a one-horned kudu just behind the back giraffe on the right. So let's bank that while we can. Hello. Where did we see a one-horned kudu? Was it with you, Wium, the other day? Or was it with Bryan? I think it was with Bryan. I can't remember where it was. I'm fairly certain it was the same one. And look at that. Perfect afternoon sunlight. A beautiful female giraffe in her prime. She is in immaculate condition. Quite a nice dark coat, as is the one up ahead here. They've both got beautiful dark coats. And again, with this perfect afternoon sunlight bathing them. Oh, supermodels of the African wilderness, no doubts. Rock and Rolly, and I think Ronald, you guys requested to see giraffes, so there we go. Please let us know if there is anything else you'd like to see, and we'll just simply wait for it here. That seems to be the way things are unfolding for us this afternoon. And isn't it funny how the reason why we came here, which was for the hippopotamus, has now been upstaged, well, not really upstaged, but thankfully substituted or supplemented by all these other animals that are coming in, because the hippo have gone to sleep.
It's like a catwalk.
Exactly. That giraffe, like Wium says, is on the catwalk. And here, we've got more visitors. Don't be alarmed. We are in the money here. This is a massive herd of impala. And who knows what is going to arrive next. You can, Wium, if you just pan a little bit more to right, there's even another giraffe further back there, just on the other side of the road. We can see its head poking out below a dead tree. A little bit further right. There it is. It's still snacking before it heads to the bar for a drink, but it looks like it too now wants to join in on the fun. Look at how awesome those clouds are. Beautiful colors and a long, long stream of impala. Magical views. Randall in Illinois, are you interested to know if impala will associate with any other antelope in specific, like kudu? And no, there's no set formula with regards to impala. They can rely on their own big numbers. Oh, we need to send you over to James quickly.
Same one.
I think. Yeah, there's two.
We're just trying desperately, everybody, to get into a position to see what I think is one of the most fascinating birds that we get here, the secretary bird. Enormous snake-eating raptorous thing. There are two of them. There's a pair. One has just disappeared behind the bush, and the other is sort of off in the distance there. There you can see it walking. It's an enormous bird. Probably stands about 3.5 feet off the ground. And they go stamping around looking for snakes to eat. Hooked sort of raptor's bill, but they're not related to any of the other raptors as far as I'm aware. Is that amazing? And I know a lot of you have requested seeing a secretary bird. There they are. And there's the other one, Bryan. I don't know if you can see this. This one is slightly closer to us. Just walking down through the dip there at 3 o'clock now. Not particularly confiding, this pair of them, but very nice to see anyway.
Right behind that stick.
You're right behind that stick, is it? Absolutely astounding how our luck has. The universe has spat upon us this afternoon. There it goes. Sort of see it, Bryan. Anyway, wonderful to see them. I'll show you a picture, of course, in case you are slightly myopic and struggling to see the real thing. I think they're fantastic. And The most interesting thing for me, when you watch them trying to fly, of course, there they are, and I've yet to hear a satisfactory explanation for why they're called a secretary bird, but you can see that they've got those sort of feathers sticking from the back of their heads, and apparently those are like the pens that a secretary might put in her hair. I think that's ridiculous myself. And then apparently also perhaps the knickerbocker-like feathers on the legs, which apparently a secretary might also wear. I've never had a secretary, of course. I've never met a secretary that wears either pins in her head or knickerbockers like that, so I'm not sure why it really called a secretary bird. Brian, any idea? Now, as we drive along here, what is interesting is that they like open areas, and they are big, heavy birds. They probably weigh in excess of 8 kilograms or so, and that, if you multiply it by 2.2, gets you to about 18 pounds. That's heavy for a bird out here. And to take off, they must almost turn into the wind, and if there's a strong wind behind them, they'll really struggle to take off. They need to turn into the wind, just like an aeroplane, open their wings, and then off this kind of float. Now, I was reading about bird flight the other day. A fascinating explanation. Oh, this thing keeps coming out. I'm so sorry. Hang on a second. There we go. We're back in now. Just some starlings there, Brian. Looks like one of them had a feather. Yeah, it does have a feather. Is that a feather? What is that? Is that a feather or a moth? I think it's a moth. I can't tell what that is at this distance. I think it might be a feather. And Lewis Lyon, while we were trying to figure out what on earth that starling is doing, you want to know how many words per minute it is a feather, how many words per minute a secretary bird can type. Lewis, the good ones around 60, the really impressive ones around 90, and the particularly gormless ones about 20. I don't know what it's doing with that feather. Doesn't look like a sort of nest tree. That's really interesting. I don't know what it would be doing, and I wonder if it doesn't actually come from that secretary bird. It's a huge white feather. This really doesn't come from the starling. Oh, what a catch. What a catch. Now, these are one of two starling species, of course. Either the greater blue-eared glossy starling or the Cape glossy starling. And the only way at this distance to tell is from the call. The greater blue-eared will go, and the Cape glossy will go, Cape glossy starling, Cape glossy starling, Cape glossy starling. I'm not actually joking. That is genuinely how you tell the difference. Now, I can hear a woodpecker, Brian. Can you hear it pecking? Where do you suppose it is? Peck, peck, peck. I think, oh, there it is. I can see it. Have you got it? Yeah. Genius, man. You're a genius. That's the most common woodpecker species we get here. And that is the cardinal woodpecker. That is a female cardinal woodpecker. As far as I can tell. Yes. I will show you how I know it is Mrs. Cardinal Woodpecker, although, of course, being a cardinal precludes having a Mrs. most of the time. Let me find her for you. Yes. Oh, that's a lovely view of her. See, no red head there. No red head. Her husband would have a red head like a cardinal's cap, and that's why he's called a cardinal woodpecker. And she doesn't have one. What a lovely sound of the bush, that tap, 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 which you only hear if you're very quiet. Tap, tap, tap. And she's drilling, of course, below the surface of the bark for insects and larvae, insect larvae that might be there. They're remarkable, really, the adaptations that a woodpecker has to be able to slam its head against solid objects all day long and not become concussed are really quite impressive. Amazing brain case filled with like a spongy substance that absorbs the shock. You can see her tail there. You see the way her tail is sort of pushing against the branch? It's acting as a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's basically stabilizing her. The tail is much harder than it is on many birds, so she's able to sort of stabilize that incredible pecking motion that she's doing now with a hard tail. And then she has a very long tongue that probes into the little holes that she's drilled. Very clever. That is the smallest woodpecker species we get here, and also seems to be the most common. Other ones, all on this page of the book, actually. The cardinal, that's them there, and that's the male there with his red hat. You see? And the common one, also down here, is the bearded woodpecker. We get that one quite often in the morning going... Now, before I get too ridiculous, there are some giraffe having a drink. Let's head across to Scott.
Well, epic work by Mr. James to find the secretary birds. I don't think I've ever... Maybe I've got one on camera once in over a year of being here. And thankfully, you didn't miss out on anything. No crocodile consumed any impala. It moved, though, away from where it was, so it's not on that same bank where the giraffe is. It's moved across to the opposite side of the waterhole. And the giraffe have been very, very cautious, which is interesting because they're so much bigger than the impala and essentially have, I guess, slightly less to worry about, but maybe their bird's eye view is making it easier for them to see that crocodile, which is installing fear into them. But we may just get lucky and see the first one start to drink now. It's an incredible thing to see because they have to really splay those front legs wide open in order to get their neck low enough down to the water's edge. And something to look out for and something to try and capture with some screenshots. I mean, I know we're far away, is their little head flick. Once they finish drinking, they do this really cool flick of their head, which sends a spray of water into the air. So keep an eye out for that and maybe try and fire away some screenshots. Here we go. Look at that. Oh, the one got a fright there. No, that wasn't the regular kind of head flick I was hoping for. I think the one giraffe spooked when it saw the further one move off quite hurriedly. Jimmerlin in Oklahoma, you've just said it is starting to look something like a scene from Noah's Ark here, and you're right, there's so far been an array of different animals. I mean, we can count crocodile, hippopotamus, giraffe, impala, kudu, elephant. So 6 different species, or at least 5 mammals, 1 reptile, all in the same spot. And who knows what will pop up next. Wium has just said we need Tingana to walk over that dam wall, down for a drink, and then continue straight south towards us and into Djuma, where we'll see him. Actually, I forgot to mention that Wium said he was going to antagonize the crocodile for a little bit, slap it around, and then continue south onto Djuma, where it would catch an impala for us. So that's Wium's predictions and wishes for Tingana, who is a big male leopard, to come onto the scene. While we wait for the giraffe to pluck up some courage, though, there's 2 hornbills just over to our right here that are having a little snack that might be worth taking a look at. They just flew off as Wium started going for it, so we will cancel that plan. But they're such comical birds that I really like to try and show you guys whenever we get the opportunity to. But as so often happens with the birds, they do not hang around. And as we try and get them on camera, they flutter off. Speaking of birds, you can see some waddling in between the giraffe there. Those are a family of Egyptian gooses, or geese rather. It's mongooses, not geese, gooses. Again, I didn't get enough sleep today due to some first aid training that we're doing. Oh, no, that wasn't the sufficient head flick that I was hoping for. We did some really cool first aid training where we did a real life kind of scenario. I was the patient, I had a broken leg, and the first aid trainer had come with all kinds of strange plastic kind of training aids that simulated me having a broken leg. He had a whole bunch of fake blood that he smeared all over me, and we did a simulation of me having fallen out of a tree in the middle of the bush when everyone came onto the scene to practice emergency protocols. So that's my excuse for not making any sense this afternoon. But it was really good training, and it's important that we do keep our first aid up to scratch out here. Obviously, we don't have any ambulances around the corner, and even though there is a first aid medic in the Sabi Sands that caters for the whole Sabi Sands, he's 45 minutes away from us, so we need to certainly be ready for any emergencies if need be. So that's what we were up to during the course of the day. I think Kirsty may have a photo or two that she could maybe hashtag SafariLIVE onto Twitter. Oh, I'm told she sent it to me already. She's one step ahead, so I'll be able to show you guys. That's going to be easier, but I'm going to have to, I think, do that a little bit later on. So that's a little treat for later. I can't turn my phone on now because, oh, there's the flick. Look at how far the water went. Can you believe that? I mean, if a giraffe's on average about 4 meters tall, that went, I'd say 5 or 6 meters out into the water. Let's see if we get another good flick here. Get ready for the screenshots. And ready, steady, go. Oh, one of the most awesome things to see. Giraffes drinking. Oh, Kirsty only gave it a 7 out of 10. I would have given that upwards of an 8, probably a 9, but Kirsty's, whew, you see, now that was a, well, Kirsty thought that one was better. We're obviously rating different things here. Kirsty obviously got a kick out of the fact that the giraffe was terrified there, but it was not nearly as far as the first two, Kirsty. I don't know what's bothering the giraffe on the legs, whether it's flies. I mean, you can see they're wagging their tails profusely, but they're also kind of stamping their feet down, and I think that could be to try and rid themselves of the flies. There's also a third giraffe further off to their right, quite a lot paler than the two on the left, which is interesting to note. And it too, it's really stamping its legs down. Let's keep an eye on it for a second and see if it doesn't give us another leg stomp. It seems to be doing it more readily than the other two. Come on, don't let me down. Come on. Well, you certainly can see its fly swatting tail is hard at work though. No luck. Anyway, I guess it wasn't a great spectacle to see, but there is obviously something giving them a hard time. I'm guessing it's the flies. Hence the funny leg stomps from time to time. Naturally, while we were on that one, the other one down by the water's edge started doing it. Heather, you say how it's incredibly neat how the giraffe have the ability to prevent the blood rushing down from their body down into their head while they're drinking like that, to prevent them fainting. And they do have an incredibly complex system of valves in their arteries and veins which control the blood flow to their brain. They've also got something called a blood sponge, which is kind of an intense network of arteries at the base of the skull, which diffuse one larger artery which carries most of that blood up to the brain at very high pressures, and when it gets to kind of the base of the brain, it then diffuses into a whole bunch of smaller arteries, therefore lowering that intense pressure, not causing their head to explode. But you're right, and thank you for pointing that out. It is important to know that their anatomy is specifically and specially evolved and adapted to be able to get their blood all the way up into their head of theirs, and it does require some very unique valve systems which most of the animals do not possess. Oh, I thought I'd seen another animal coming down, but it was just the third giraffe wagging its tail in the bush. Hello to Enid in Connecticut. You would like to know if that leg stomping is not something to do with kind of fight or flight response. And no, I don't think so. If a giraffe is scared of anything, it will usually not really confront it, although sometimes giraffes will stand their ground to lion if they are in thick bush and use those long legs to stomp out at them. But that's not what we're seeing here. Because there's no lions around, so, or anything really that's giving them a hard time. So that's why I think it's the flies that they're just trying to keep at bay, and it's almost out of frustration, you could say, that they're stomping down with their legs. Not that it makes huge sense to. Just a gentle leg wobble would probably do the trick to swish the flies away. But yes, certainly if they are under attack from lions, they will use those long, powerful legs of them to try and keep them at bay. So I'm not too sure what to do next. I think we will probably be heading off soon. Oh, I love watching giraffes running, especially when it's in a perfect open clearing like this. It looks like they're in slow motion. Bryan in Philadelphia, hello and welcome back. I hope you've had enough sleep after having a late night, an unexpected late night last night, which was our morning. As we followed the Nkuhumas pride, you were also enjoying a few beers, so I hope you're not hungover. Anyway, you're interested to know how the hippo are so tolerant of the crocodiles, and it's a good point, but they don't really have any reason to be aggressive with one another, even in situations where droughts become extremely intense and hippos may be stacked up one next to the other. You will even have crocodiles crawling on top of them. I've seen scenes like that, sadly not in the flesh, but footage thereof. So they will be tolerant of one another. Obviously, a mother hippo with a young calf will realize that a crocodile is a danger and therefore be less tolerant of them. But hippos are vegetarians, and because they are so much bigger than crocodiles, unless they are young, they don't have any reason to really be scared of them. So they will be tolerant of them and generally get along as if they are buddies, you could say. That, or not buddies, let me rephrase that. That's as if either species is not there. It's just like a neutral subject. They just get along with their own business and get along with their own days and essentially mind one another's business is what I'm trying to get at, unless of course there is a youngster that they will naturally take care of. So I think we are going to push on. I'm not too sure where we are going to go from here, but the animals have left. The hippos are sadly no longer fighting. It would have been an awesome spectacle to try and show you guys, but maybe in the coming days we will get to see a little bit more action from them. And while we decide where to go from here, we're going to send you back to James for an update on how his Arathusa safari is coming along.
We've left Arathusa, everybody. I didn't find anything further except one serrated hinged terrapin. The serrated hinged terrapin decided it didn't want to see us. It wasn't going to wait for the giraffe to drink, and so it climbed into a smelly puddle and disappeared from view. We are now heading back towards Djuma, as you can tell from the incredible rattling going on the road here. We're on what is known as the Triple M break, which is the main road that comes in from the Gowrie Gate. Oft used by vehicles, and that's why it is a little bit like driving on corrugated iron, actually corrugated concrete. Now, our plan from here is to head sort of towards Gallagher Waterhole. I want to see if we can't find something drinking there that resembles a spotted cat. I know that Karula, when it is hot, likes to go and have a drink either there or perhaps at the Djuma Dam Pan. So we'll go and pop around there and see what we can find there at the moment, and I'll keep you posted, obviously. We didn't find, like I say, anything further on Arathusa except that terrapin. We did try and find the secretary birds again, and what I wanted to chat to you about just before we left to go and look at the giraffes were heavy flying birds. Now, the world's heaviest flying bird, of course, is the Kori bustard, weighing in, the big males, at about 19 kilograms. That in pounds is about 42 pounds. That's a heavy bird. They reckon the heaviest flying bird in history weighed, Bryan, can you have any idea how much it weighed?
Not a clue.
It weighed 80 kilograms. 80 kilograms. Is that quite astonishing? That is about 180 pounds. That's astonishing mass for a bird. I would not like to come across the bird that was able to fly at that mass. I think it must have been an absolutely terrifying creature. And most likely a meat eater. But very ancient, obviously died out long before humanity came about the world. Right, we're back on Djuma. And what I want to show you, the first thing we want to see here is going to, well, I'm going to show you two things from this particular area. The first, Bryan, if you don't mind, just pointing the camera towards the mountains where another lying storm is gathering. But it's very, very beautiful as it gathers over the western Drakensberg there. Look how pretty Bryan's framing is. Very done, well done, Bryan. And whether that will deposit any water on the mountains or not, I don't know. It certainly is not going to deposit any water here. Beautiful. Hoedspruit just underneath those far mountains there. That's quite a nice frame there, Bryan, isn't it? Mm. Yeah, it's very clever of you. Now, then the other thing I wanted to show you in this particular area, given the lack of sort of predators and, well, any heartbeat really, is this tree. And this tree is known as a brown ivory. And this is a particularly good example of a brown ivory tree. And its Shangaan name is, of course, Nkuhumas, after which the famous Nkuhumas pride, which you saw earlier this afternoon with Scott, is named. Isn't it lovely? I don't know that it has anything particularly spectacular along the lines of the medicinal uses, but I just think it's a very pretty tree. Right, let us continue on our way. We'll go up this road here, which is called Zoe's Road. And I drove up and down here a few times today, still trying to find some tracks of Shadow. I was on Arathusa. There is absolutely no update about Shadow at all. So I don't know where she is. I don't think it's a bad thing that there's no update. I think it does indicate that she might have found herself a den and be producing little baby shadows. What do you call a baby shadow, Bryan? A shadowling. Shadowling. Now, Patrick, you're in Philadelphia, and you were watching a few days ago when we had the tremendous privilege of finding Tingana mating with Tundi, and you want to know if they've finished, Patrick, if they've finished with their mating. I don't know, Patrick. I would think they have, because there have been no reports of either of them coming out of the south. The mating will often go on for about 4 days, and so it would in theory be over. Certainly we caught them on, we think, the second day, and so it would be over, and I certainly haven't heard of either of them since then, and I think the guys in the south would definitely have found them. Mating leopards are not, as you possibly saw, particularly private animals, and they tend to make quite a loud noise over the whole business, and so they're often not that difficult to find. There's some flycatchers flitting about here, but I think to try and film them will result in seasickness. Well, there's a little chin spot batis. Did you see him, Brian? I think he has flown away, though. The chin spot batis, a little black and white bird that goes a tremendously peaceful sound of the summer midday. Not 3 blind mice, unless you are tone deaf. Now, Raven, you're in the United Kingdom. I'm not sure if I've heard from you before, Raven. And if I haven't, it's wonderful to have your question. And if I have, I'm sorry that I have forgotten. Raven, you want to know if the full moon affects the animals out here? Well, of course, the werewolves tend to come out during the full moon, but other than them, it really does affect many creatures. The cheetah and wild dog, which are predominantly daytime hunters, will absolutely hunt during the full moon, when normally they would hide in the cover of darkness. You'll find that many of the herbivores, which are often hate the night because of the lions and the leopards and the hyenas that might try and hunt them, they enjoy the full moon because they can see those predators coming to get them. And lions and leopards and hyenas, of course, will really struggle to catch animals during the full moon because they are stalk and pounce predators as opposed to coursing predators like the wild dogs and the cheetah. So yes, full moon definitely changes the way the animals behave. In terms of their mood and their emotions, no, I don't think so really. Maybe it might, but we certainly don't know about it. I know some people who it definitely affects. Stunning views out to the east there, Brian. Again, in the absence of any animal. There's an animal, Brian. Look, it's got a heartbeat. That black thing hanging in the tree there, it's got a heartbeat. There it is, you see? It is a fork-tailed drongo. The fork-tailed drongo, highly aggressive species. This one clearly in needing of the loo, along with the other 3 or 4 animals that we found you today. All of them have been seemingly in the middle of their afternoon constitutionals. That forked tail, I was reading about tails and flight the other day as well, and the forked tail is an excellent way for a bird to be able to expand the surface area of the tail very quickly and then contract it again, which allows for great maneuverability, especially in and amongst the trees. So you'll find that birds, this is quite interesting, you'll find that birds that fly high and have to be very maneuverable tend not to have very long tails, but others that have to fly in amongst the trees tend to have much longer tails. Now, Bill, you are in Florida. Oh, there's a brilliant, are you getting that swallow? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well done, Brian. That's a swallow. Now, swallows actually, I'm probably talking a bit of nonsense there. They also have forked tails that they can open and expand and then close again. And they're tremendously maneuverable birds. Like little fighter jets. Isn't that amazing to watch? Oh, that's fantastic. There is nothing more peaceful, I find. If you're feeling a little bit down and you want to feel a bit inspired by life, just lie yourself down in some sweet-smelling vegetation and look up at the sky and watch a couple of swallows or swifts flitting about trying to catch some insect. I find that a very peaceful and calming way to spend some time. And there, of course, is a big raptor. And at this distance, I would have to say a vulture. Difficult to say. Is it? No, it's not, is it? Now, let me get my powerful binoculars out. I can't even see it with the naked eye. Oh, there we go. Got him. A Wahlberg's eagle with a very skinny tail. Beautiful. Now, Bill, you were asking about intoxication, not so much of WildEarth, but of the animals here, and you want to know if the animals can get intoxicated from wild fruits that might have fermented. Bill, no is the answer, is the short answer. I suppose it might be possible that I think that was a little testicular, was it? I think it might be possible, Bill, that a monkey, a very small monkey, coming across a pile of very highly fermented marula fruits might be able to feel slightly tipsy on the back end of a truly enormous meal of those marulas. And what I'm saying then is that it's not really possible. The misconception apparently was created by a film called The Gods Must Be Crazy. I think it was The Gods Must Be Crazy. It might be another one. But where they got a whole lot of baboons and monkeys drunk by injecting them with ethanol. And that made them drunk, and it looked like they'd been eating the fruit and that had made them drunk. And then, of course, if you come to the bush in South Africa and you're unlucky enough to be on safari with, well, you get one or two South Africans that are self-described experts in the bush, and they've heard a couple of legends during the course of their upbringing. And one of those legends, of course, is that elephants become drunk on marula fruits, and during marula season, you must go nowhere near elephants because they become totally intoxicated and they'll chase you and run your vehicle over. That is absolute nonsense. There's no ways that any amount of marula fruit could possibly make an elephant drunk. So, Bill, no, it's, in general, I would say a complete misconception that any of the fruits here can make an animal intoxicated. Nice question. Thank you very much. Bryan, let's find another heartbeat. Nice wing beats there you found. Good job. Jen, you're a 5th grade teacher in Missouri, which is wonderful to have you along. I'm not sure if any of your kids are watching. I don't suppose they would. They might be at this time of the day. Jen, I want to know about omnivores, I think was your question. What omnivores do we get here? Well, the most obvious one would be a baboon or a monkey. They're quite omnivorous. They will eat meat and vegetables and insects and fruits and leaves and shoots and all sorts of things like that. And then the other example would be something like, well, to a certain extent, a warthog, which will sample meat if it has to, and a bush pig, definitely. Very uncommon here, but we do get them every so often. A bush pig could be considered an omnivore. They will certainly sample meat if they can. So I suppose those would be the most obvious omnivores. And then you get something called a side-striped jackal, which is one of the canids that we get here. And they have been known, I mean, they do eat fruit as well as meat. And indeed, their fruit-eating activities or behaviors gave the name of the jackalberry to the tree. Diospyros mespelophomes, or the ebony tree, is also called the jackalberry because the side-striped jackal likes to eat the fruit sometimes. I think those would be the main omnivores that we get around here. You'll find that things, though, are not as specialist as you might have thought. There are many, many animals, certainly birds out here, that will, especially in dry times like this, they'll eat whatever they can. So you'll have the nectar feeders with their long beaks, the sunbirds. They will certainly eat insects at this time of the year when there are no flowers around the place. You'll find a lot of the insect eaters might eat seeds if they can get hold of them. They might eat fruit if they can get hold of them. A lot of the fruit eaters are really going to struggle now because we had a very poor marula season, very poor sour plum season. I see some of the guarries are starting to fruit now, but whether they'll fruit properly or not this year, I'm not sure. And so all of the birds that eat fruit will have to sort of branch out and eat other things. And I think the insects are the ones that cop it the most for that. And of course then, I mean, if we're really pushing it, a lot of the herbivores will suck on bones as well. The most obvious examples probably being a nyala and a giraffe. They will suck bones. Not sure that that's true omnivory. They don't eat meat, but they will certainly suck on bones for extra phosphorus and extra minerals. Nice question. Thank you for that, Jen. And if your class is watching, I hope they're all enjoying it. Scott, mercifully, is back at some sleepy heartbeats, slow heartbeats. Let's go back to him. I'll keep going. Searching forth.
Well, I'm not hugely surprised to see the Nkuhumas pride still deep in a slumber. It's quite a muggy evening, despite there being a little bit of cloud cover. It's been a warm evening, and I'm guessing that they are going to continue to be fairly relaxed as they are now for at least another half an hour or so, unless, of course, some prey stumbles upon them. Interestingly enough, just up ahead of us on this road, just on the crest, as we were arriving, a buffalo crossed from left to right. There's a kind of a termite mound that you can see on the right over there. That's where the buffalo walked. The lion had no idea. Lucky buffalo, I guess, although it was a big Cape buffalo bull. And for those of you who were on the Sunrise Safari and have joined us on multiple safaris in the past, you will know that the Cape buffalo bulls are not an easy item of prey for lions to take down, especially the Nkuhumas pride, who statistically get shown up just about every time by them. They come in stalking them, and everybody gets excited, and you think there's going to be action. The buffalo turn around, huff and puff, and then chase the lion away with their tails between their legs. So that is the reality of the buffalo interactions that we've seen with these ladies. I must say, though, in the lion's defense, it has been during the day without the cover of darkness for them. So that does make a very large difference. When it's dark, they can create more confusion and therefore have a bigger chance of taking down even the biggest of Cape buffalo bulls. But I think that in this state we should probably just at least do a loop around in the general area. I'm keen to go and see if we can't get you a glimpse of the unknown male leopard that Brent saw a couple of days back, not too far from here. We may get lucky and find him slinking around. So let's do a loop around and see what happens and come back here in a little bit of time. Lynn in Michigan, you would like to know what would happen if a young male lion that's probably just over 3 years of age now, give or take, called Junior, who was born to this pride.
I dropped my sunglasses.
Oh, no problem. Wium dropped his sunglasses, which I will grab for him quickly. Nearly ran them over. Oh, kapunk! 2 shots on the head there. Nice. They don't seem damaged. That's a bonus. Fancy Wium Ray-Bans, eh? So, Junior, young male lion born to this pride, who's moved off naturally as he should have. Then you would like to know what would happen if, in fact, he came back here. What would his mothers and sisters, or mother and sisters and aunts do if they saw him? I'm guessing they would possibly, or in all likelihood, recognize him. They would recognize him. Not sure how happy they would be to see him. Maybe they would. I've never seen a young male lion reunite with its pride after having left. So, not too sure about that. I'm also not sure why my voice is sounding muffled all of a sudden. I'm trying to speak clearly and pronounce my words. Now, there's some lion food over here. And this is, interestingly enough, the last creature that they devoured. It was not an adult zebra like we're looking at now, but a young foal. But that was their last successful kill. Shame it was an emotional sighting, a heart-wrenching sighting, because that young zebra foal was just letting out the most desperate wailing sound as the lions basically ate it alive. And the zebra's poor mother was calling out, in desperation trying to call its lost foal just to make sure it wasn't in fact there. Speaking of gory ongoings, it reminds me that I should show you a picture of our first aid training from today. Thank you, Kirsty. This is going to be a laugh for a lot of you. So, this is after the celebrating life, after I was rescued by the SafariLIVE team. Let me see if I can fix one thing here. Increase the light a little bit. My eye was actually glued shut by the fake blood. So that right eye was completely shut. And then where's the next one? Here's the next one. This is me. I had... The team treated me for a broken arm. I actually didn't have a broken arm, but they put a splint on anyway. I just had a graze on my arm. My leg, in fact, was broken. So they did a good job with the splint there, although it didn't go far enough. It didn't cover my ankle joints. And they also forgot about my internal wound, which is on my stomach here. I kept saying, my stomach, but nobody took notice of it. It was under my shirt. But nobody really listened to my plea for my sore stomach. But all a very good learning curve for the whole crew regarding first aid. And I guess one of the major things we learned is that you need to try and remain calm in those situations, because panic does not help anyone. Beautiful clouds out to the south. That is the direction you are looking now. Hopefully that will bring us some moisture, as we desperately, desperately need it. I'm not sure if I heard correctly here, but I think Whitney is saying that I should have been the one doing the training because I'm a monkey, and James should have been the one lying there being the guinea pig because he's got everything under control. And if that is what you're saying, you're probably right. So Whitney, I agree with you, even though you are attacking my first aid capabilities. James is very proficient and took it all very seriously. He was the first on the scene, and I was relieved to have him there, rescuing me. Alex, the Russian genius, as well as David, the new cameraman, were tending to me. They were the main kind of help that I had, and they spoke very soothingly to me. I felt very cared for. We're going to continue snooping around the northeastern corner of Djuma while you guys head back to James.
So you saw how we saved Scott, of course, today. It was a very traumatic experience, wasn't it, Bryan? It was, yes. Scott, of course, was lying there and covered in, well, tomato sauce, basically, but it was very realistic tomato sauce. Leanne was sitting under a tree, moaning at the state of her ankle, and then they pointed Steph out to me in the clearing, and Steph appeared to have had both of his legs and his arms chopped off, lost his eyes as well, and looked remarkably like a dummy. Anyway, he required a whole lot of CPR, which was a little awkward. I didn't expect to ever have to give Steph CPR anyway, so it was. We saved him in the end. Wium, Bryan and I saved Steph, and we taped Scott together. Scott was probably not taped together as competently as he should have been. I fear that he would have lost rather more blood than he would have wanted, and possibly experienced quite a lot of more pain. What was that? Kirsten, I didn't hear that. Can you go again? Ah, yes. Now, you saw a picture, of course, of Scott on his backboard. Once we got him there, I think it was okay. Anyway, it was a fascinating experience, really valuable to know how we were going to react in an amazing situation. Of course, the most amazing part of the experience was looking up and seeing Nikki Austin arriving in my personal vehicle. She had taken it upon herself to bring the rescuers water, and the only car available was mine, which she stole and drove onto quarantine clearings to provide us all with sustenance. It was quite an experience for all concerned. And thank you very much to the viewer who said that it's most likely to happen to me because I'm like a monkey. Well, I would agree with you in one respect, in that it is most likely to happen to me, but it's precisely because I'm not like a monkey that is likely to happen to me. Really? Brian's just spotted a little frog. This is very cool. You should have seen his face light up. Can he get out? Brilliant. Hold on a sec. Oh my goodness, yes. I've seen one of these once before. Can you see it? Or do you want me to lift the bush?
You lift those leaves up in front there.
Can you see the frog?
Kind of. Not the best view.
Wait, let me...
Just that leaf in front. There we go.
How fantastic is that? Brian, that's brilliant. Now, what I think you will find is that this is a painted reed frog. Now, I will check this in my book, but I think it's a painted reed frog, and it's not normally colored like this. But in the summer months when it's estivating, or no, not summer, it would normally not be estivating. In the dry months when it's estivating and trying to reflect as much heat as it can, it will change color to this white color, which will then reflect off the sun and stop it from drying out. Isn't that brilliant? Well done, Brian.
Thank you, Jay.
Now let's just keep him there. I just want to get the book out quickly and make sure that I am identifying him correctly. In fact, my book is right here. Not ironically called The Frogs of Southern Africa. Yeah, I think that's him. And I will just show you the one I mean quickly, if I can find him. Now, Bryan, I think this is him here. Now, can you see him there?
Yep.
Now, you see he's normally black, but he's lost that black color, I think. I'm pretty sure this is what he is. I think he's lost that black color in the light. And I've yet to see a photograph of a frog exactly like this, but you can see the yellow coloration is almost exactly the same. He's a wonderful little fellow. Let's try and put him next to the book, maybe. You see him there? There you can see those yellow stripes going all the way up his back. There will be some variation, of course, regionally, but I think that's pretty much who he is. I'd happily take any thoughts on what else he might be, but I'm 95% sure that that's what he is. He's certainly the closest that there is in this book. The painted reed frog in his estivating white color. Brilliant, Bryan, well done. And of course, he would normally be that color, I suppose, during the winter time. And in the summer, he'd be sitting in a pan, singing away beautifully in the night. But the night has been distressingly short of any kind of frog song this year, which I find quite sad. I love the sound of frogs in the night. Right, I plugged myself in. What a fantastic, fantastic catch. Very cool, Bryan. Very cool job. Now, white, of course, is a very silly color to be out here because there's not a lot of it. And so it is quite easy to spot, especially if your predators are largely birds, which I suppose that ones would be. But it was well shaded there, very cleverly hidden amongst the leaves. So we'll go and have a quick look at the Djuma Dam pan, and then, given the lack of obvious animals, maybe we should head towards the hyena den. Oh my goodness, our international man of mystery, who's clearly an international spy or an assassin of some kind, Mr. Moustache, no longer in Iceland, not indeed in the United States, but in Denmark today. Mr. Moustache, I'm so glad, maybe when you're doing a stakeout, you get bored, and that's why you watch SafariLIVE. Otherwise, I don't know how you manage to do it through your busy schedule traveling around the world. You want to know if any of the animals out here get sunburn. The hippo gets sunburn. They produce their own sunscreen, a violently smelling pink substance. But the rest are pretty well hidden. They're pretty much able to cope with it. And that's largely because they have got, well, they've got fur covering the skin. But things like that frog, if you leave them in the sun, will definitely desiccate. And while their skin might be able to cope with a bit of sun, their bodies can't. A frog, of course, doesn't have a waterproof skin, and so it will lose its water very quickly if it's exposed to the blinding sunlight, and then it would die. It's not a huge trouble with the sunburn. Lots of melanin in the skin of, well, the birds and most of the mammals, which allows them not to be sunburned. I have to tell you, I can't remember seeing so few mammals before. I think either I've gone blind or there's some sort of conspiracy. Bryan? Blind or conspiracy?
Conspiracies.
Conspiracies. Good. Hello, Eric Moore. You want me to greet Mrs. Mervin's human geography class. I greet you, Mrs. Mervin's human geography class. I'm very glad that you've tuned in here and hope that we're teaching you something about human geography. I'm not sure if we are, but if you have any questions on human geography that you think might be applicable to what we're doing here, please feel free to send them through #SafariLIVE, questions@wildearth.tv, and I will happily do my best to answer them for you. Those birds we're looking at, by the way, are hadida ibis, and I'm going to ask Bryan to make their call for you. Bryan? Once more. That's exactly what the hadida ibis sounds like, everybody. And they are not a popular bird in Johannesburg because, of course, people in Johannesburg don't like to get out of bed at 4 in the morning. They like to get out of bed leisurely before they hit the traffic and go to work. And that bird, of course, likes to get up very early indeed, sit on the roof and go, ha, ha, in your window. It's very unpleasant. I think the sun might be getting to us, Bryan. I think our brains might be boiling. Let's look at that starling there. Now, I showed you either a greater blue-eared glossy starling or a Cape glossy starling earlier. That is neither. That is the Birchall's in beautiful light there. And it has a black eye, that's the most obvious difference, and a long tail. It's much bigger than the other two. Isn't he lovely? And as I said yesterday, there's no blue, green, or black pigment. Well, there's black pigment. There's no blue or green pigment in that bird. It's a complicated arrangement of layers of keratin and melanin that produces that iridescence that reflects only low wavelength light. Beautiful. Okay, let's carry along here. We'll just go to the end of the road here. We might think about going to the hyena den. Mike, in Florida, you say you haven't laughed as hard as you have in a while when you heard Bryan making his hadida call. I do find it quite astonishingly funny myself. So it goes when the heat is on and the animals are few. You can hear some oxpecker's alarm calling, which normally means there's a mammal. In our case, of course, it won't mean any such thing. It will mean that they're going to sleep in the boughs of this dead knobthorn tree here. They might well have a nest in here, you know. Can you see them, Bryan? They're completely invisible. You can hear them calling everybody. You can hear them going chip, 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 chip. The other side, let me just sneak it around. Oh, there, I can see it. It's a juvenile. Way top there. You see it? You pan up that left-hand fork. Yeah, you'll get in there. Keep going. Keep going. There. Left a bit, left a bit. That's him. There he is. Now, you can see he's a juvenile by the fact that he... does he have a red beak? No. He does. He has a red beak. He's not a juvenile at all. He's an adult. Or she's an adult. And I suspect quite strongly that the little flock of oxpeckers, their communal breeders, will have a nest in this tree. They like to nest in tree holes. And they'll roost in these sorts of trees as well. They don't roost on the animals from whom they steal ticks. Good. Well, Bryan, our luck is turning. Hadida ibis, birchal starling, red-billed oxpecker. What will be next? Tigers? Oh, very nice call from Janet in Maryland. You're an ornithologist and you particularly like kingfishers, I think, and you want to know about the kingfisher calls. And obviously you've heard the woodland kingfisher's incessant chip. And you want to know about the others, what kind of calls they make. I'll tell you what, let's stop over here and I'll actually play them for you, given that we don't really have a great deal to look at, and it's always a good idea to stop and listen. So, Janet, I've got an amazing bird app, and what we'll do is we'll play the calls. The most obvious one is the striped kingfisher, which sounds very similar to the woodland kingfisher, and it sounds a little bit like this, if I can find the little fellow. King, search. Right, here. Here is this is the striped. No, that's not the striped, that's the brown-hooded. Stand by. Striped goes like this. So it sounds like a sort of, sounds like a sick woodland kingfisher, really. So that's the striped. Then the brown-hooded says, pity for you, pity for you, pity for you. There he is. And then we have the pied, which is the hovering one that hovers above. He's got a very different kind of a call. Right, and then I think what is the most other obvious one? Oh, let's just find quickly the pygmy kingfisher, which is a lovely little subtle call. Remember, we saw them nesting above the hyena den on Gallagher Shortcut. In the hyena den, actually. And that's the pygmy. There are one or two others, but that's the basic. They're all quite different sounding, except for the striped and the woodland. Okay, Scott has got a tiny baby antelope he wants to show you. We're going to turn around and probably head back towards the hyena den.
Look at how cute this little baby Nyala is. It's not really a Nyala. That's how I guess a lot of our American viewers may pronounce it. It's an Inyala, but it's spelt N-Y-A-L-A, which actually means onion or onion, as the local people of this area would pronounce it. And that's because of the vertical white stripes resembling an onion ring. Cute. Speaking of cuteness, I hope James does get lucky and find the hyena den fully active and full of cute little cubs running around, especially after last night's affair with the Nkuhumas pride popping into the hyena den for a visit. I'm sure James has discussed that with you. What an awesome sighting you guys had of that painted reed frog. I only managed to show, well, I've only shown you one so far, and it was last summer. Some of you may remember seeing that with me, but since then, it's been very slim pickings of our amphibian friends. So to get that very pretty frog on screen is a great job. So well done to James, and I'm looking forward to chatting to him and finding out how exactly he spotted it, because I'm sure, as he may have shown you, it would have just been a tiny little white speck on a bush. They're not the largest of frogs. No sign of any predators in this neck of the wilderness. It's not to say they are not here, of course, it's just we haven't seen any sign of them. But in this area, the other predators we could bump into are two leopards, the dominant male that we see, who travels through a huge area, but he does occur here, and his name is Tingana, and then a female called Karula, and she's got a much smaller territory that basically takes up the whole of Djuma. So we could bump into her anywhere on the property, but we are in the central parts of Djuma now. Wasn't long ago that when I was on camera with Jamie, we found Tingana lying right here next to this bush. It was the afternoon that he was having some bowel problems, and he made a few awkward poops as well as an attempted vomit on air. It wasn't his most glamorous afternoon. Some large elephant tracks here. Well, not large, but I guess all elephants' feet are quite big. But on our right here, we can see when elephants walk down the road, and we can also tell which direction it was moving in. And you'll notice that the portion of the track closest to us lacks a little dent, like the opposite end of the track for the furthest end of the track has, indicating where the toe is scuffed forward. So the elephant has been moving in the same westerly direction as us. Hard to be sure exactly how fresh it is, but we could bump into it around the next corner. Doesn't appear to be any other animals' tracks on top of it. Maria, in Germany, you've mentioned that elephants do not digest their food very well and would like to know what other animals will feed on them. And that's a good question. I've never actually seen other mammals feeding on elephant dung. But that's not to say that they wouldn't, especially in times of drought and in times of hardship. I've seen birds rummaging through their dung in order to possibly get to insects or possibly get to little morsels that they can feed on. Other animals that will also rummage through an elephant's dung are squirrels in order to get the marula nuts out of them. But what we can see here is that termites have been breaking down this dung. So even though it's not very well digested by the elephants, termites will eventually completely break this down and recycle it back into the ecosystem. So it's not that it goes to waste, and I guess everything happens out here for a reason, and they all the animals have their specific roles, termites having a hugely important role. And simply because we don't see them doesn't mean they are not plentiful, and it does not mean they do not recycle huge amounts of vegetation that is basically undigestible for a lot of other animals. And I'm told that the termites will feed on a greater biomass of vegetation than all the other herbivores, all the mammalian herbivores put together. So that gives you an idea just how much vegetation they process. It will be interesting to see, though, as the drought unfolds, if we don't see any animals further feeding on, or mammals rather, further feeding on elephant dung, but I've never seen it happening. a lot of you will be happy to hear that the Djuma Waterhole is now back up and running. So if you have yet to get that update, that is some good news. So well done to Alex, who is our technical wizard in the field at the moment. We've poached him from Russia. He was busy building rockets and spaceships for the Russian government before he was employed with WildEarth. Only kidding, but he's certainly capable of doing that. And some funny banter that was had yesterday whilst discussing first aid scenarios was the first aid instructor asked Wium what Alex would do if he was handed a space blanket, which is basically just a silver blanket that you'll wrap around patients who are in shock or who need to be kept warm. And the answer from Wium was that he would build a space shuttle, or sorry, no, a satellite out of a space blanket. Now, we saw the Inyala earlier, which is the medium-sized spiral-horned antelope of this area, and now James has found its larger cousin.
Bryan, quickly shout in there and tell them we have no batteries. We'll replace them immediately.
We have no batteries. We'll replace them immediately.
Right, just in the meantime, enjoy the kudu. She's eating a white berry bush. She's startled by my voice. Give me 1 second, everyone. Shortly, my sultry tones will be returned to you in glorious high definition. There we go. How's that, Bryan? 1, 2, 1, 2. There we go. Well done. Phew, Bryan, that was close, wasn't it?
Indeed.
Bit too much excitement, really.
Way too much.
After the first aid scenario today and now the battery running out, what will be next? Now, this is a particularly confiding example of a female kudu. They normally run away. And Janet, you say Bryan's beatboxing was out of control? I'm not sure which particular incident you're referring to, but yes. Oh, I see, it sounded like he was beatboxing when you came to us. I think I was just laughing, actually. Now, what the kudu is walking past is the mound out of which the warthog exploded yesterday when the lions came past. That's their little burrow. You can see it is active. This kudu is amazing. They're normally very secretive. She seems to be very confident indeed. And she's walking down the little track towards the hyena den. She can smell something. You can see her watching, smelling, her ears swiveling like little satellite dishes all the time. And they are just the most beautiful antelope. Second, in my opinion, in the magnificence to the Nyala. And you can see we get a lot of questions. Scott was obviously pointing out the Nyala to you. We get a lot of questions about the differences between the two. And once you see them one after the other like you just have, you can't really confuse them at all. She spotted something through the bush there. Now, if it was something dangerous, she would alarm call. She'd go, brr. We've got a sort of bark. It's the most what is the word that I mean? It's sort of incongruous. It's an incongruous sound for an animal like this to make. Kirsten wants to hear that again. Brr. That's actually a particularly poor rendition of what it sounds like, but it is like a bark. And the reason it's very low frequency, and it's low frequency because they do live in the thickish bush, and so that low frequency bark kind of travels through the thicker bush better than a high frequency sound would. There's a young male making his way also towards us. There he is, with his little horns, which will, of course, turn into magnificent spiraled horns. There's beautiful white chevrons under the eyes, which some people will tell you are to reflect light into the eyes because they live in thick bush. I'm just not sure that I buy that. I don't know why else they'd have them, though. Perhaps to break the outline of the face. I think that's why they've got those stripes. If those warthog were to come exploding out of that burrow now, it would be thoroughly amusing because that kudu would leap clean out of its skin. Let's sneak a little bit forward. Just see if we can't see mummy warthog poking her head out. Warthogs do tend to feel a bit cornered when they're in their burrows. So they do often come exploding out if something walks in front of them. But I don't think they're in there, to be honest. I think maybe, as Bryan said, he said, do you think they'll go in there after the lions were investigating the burrow yesterday? I said, I thought they might, but maybe they haven't. What a stunning kudu sighting. Before it gets too dark, let's ooze down to the hyena den, see who's home. I never get sick of the hyena den, of course. And for those of you who perhaps weren't watching yesterday, that lion pride that Scott is watching now, the Nkuhumas, they came through the hyena den. The adults disappeared, the youngsters went down into the hole, and one of the lionesses stuck her head right into where the cubs were. And of course the cubs are very safe in the hole. She obviously smelt them. I've no doubt that the cubs saw her silhouetted leonine face in the entrance to their burrow, and they sat very still indeed inside. And just very slowly roll our way in there. First colourful sunset we've had in the last few days. Isn't that lovely? Those dead knobthorn trees, rendered such by the elephants. It's very subtle, Bryan. Very subtly beautiful. Your hyena, your hadida call, though, wasn't subtle at all. It was deeply unsubtle. Very professional. There is one hyena, a little one. It's a bit older than June, so perhaps a yearling. There was one born in February last year, who I think is called impala, which means to hide. Leave that one disappearing off there. And let's go and poke our heads around the corner here. Right, 2 adults so far, 1 cub at least. There are 3 adults here, you know. Fine, there's another one just through there. I don't want to go any closer. Who's that? Can't see through the bush. I think we've got Pretty lying in front of us here. That's Madam, the matriarch, with her scaffy ears. Patient lady she is, with all the youngsters. And there's Pretty, with her perfect ears. Well done, Bryan. And only one of the youngsters out. I think that's probably November, who is Pretty's daughter. So sweet. Now, I'm going to be quiet again for the next 20 seconds and let's just listen. We've had quite nice bird calls this afternoon. Let's listen to hear what we can hear at the hyena den. Oh, you saw the little ones go inside there. Something's going on. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, everyone seems to be out, but something, they're looking in the direction from where the lions came yesterday, but of course there are no lions around here now. Anyway, the only bird that you could hear there was a drongo calling half-heartedly in the tree above. Sorry, Bryan. Now, Mr. Macman, you can see that this den is on a termite mound. So it's an enormous termite mound. In fact, probably one of the biggest I've seen. Hey, Bryan? I mean, it really is quite extensive. And Mr. Macman, you want to know if it would ever be flooded, even if in the heaviest rains. Mr. Macman, I don't think it would be flooded, no. I think it would be almost impossible unless we had a deluge of a sort of Noah proportions. I don't think this would ever flood. We're away from the drainage area, sort of above the high water mark, and the termite mound entrances themselves are way off the ground. So no, I don't think there'd ever be a chance that this den could be flooded. They're all quite hot and bothered, I think. So although it hasn't been that hot today, definitely the temperature has hardly dropped at all as the sun's gone down. They are such magnificent, magnificent creatures, these. And I know a lot of you have suggested, well, why don't you put a camera up at the den so that we can watch permanently? It would be an idea, except that they keep moving their dens, of course. This one's been around for now almost 8 weeks. But they do keep moving their dens, and so to put up a camera with the requisite wiring, etc., is not always that easy to then take it down and move it again. So we just have to come here every day to have a look and see. Everything very soporific here. Clearly they've had a very busy time of it. Much playing. But every time the wind blows, every time a little breeze blows over the top, the adults lift their noses. And of course they will always smell something different. On every little piece of wind that comes through, there'll be a different smell for them. Our noses don't pick up anything. But a hyena's incredibly sensitive nose will always pick up some kind of a scent. Anyway, I think we'll probably sit here for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll head off and see what else we can find. And interestingly, the green above there is becoming slightly more sparse as the drought continues. Now, Bill, a wonderful question about male hyenas, and do they ever hang around the den, or do they just kind of disappear? Bill, I've seen 2 or 3 males at this den. Not often, though. The first male I saw, not at this den, but at this clan's den, was a very injured one. We think he's quite a dominant male, too. We think he may even be the father of some of these cubs. And he seemed to come back to the den to seek protection. He was badly injured. And 2 days later, he seemed to be fine. He looked to be on death's door when we saw him. He came almost back to the den to seek protection, I think. And then I've seen 1 or 2 come in and out. But no, they don't spend any time here if they can avoid it. They'll normally spend time in groups of 2s or 1, and they'll forage on their own. And then they're the ones that kind of will go off, and they cross the clan boundary and go and seek out things to eat for the whole clan. And they're almost like the sort of soldiers of the clan. They go off on these sort of scouting forays, if you like. It's also them, of course, that will leave their natal clan. The thing about male hyenas I think is most fascinating is that what happens to them is that if they will inherit their mother's, they will definitely inherit their mother's status within the male hierarchy. So although just about every female will outrank every male, the males do inherit their mother's status. So if they're born to the matriarch, they'll be a high-ranking male. But that means that their chances of mating are very small. And if they then leave their natal clan and go off to another clan, they will lose all of their status, which means that they will be hungry for quite a lot of the time. But it does mean that they will be able to mate. So hyena females are much more likely to mate with low-ranking immigrants than they are with high-ranking members of the same clan, which I think is fascinating. Look, isn't that sweet? Wonderful question here. Obviously, Charlotte, you were watching yesterday from Port Elizabeth, and we're just going to watch a quick greeting ceremony here. This is how hyenas greet each other. Just listen. It wasn't very extensive greeting, just that grunting. Oh. And then that sort of genital sniffing. And that's totally normal. That's exactly how they do it. And Madam, that's the matriarch. She's off on the hunting foray. See what she can find to eat. And there, too, goes Pretty with her. Good luck, girls. Oh, she's coming right close by. There they go. Now they're alone. Oh, no, they've got one adult, well, one semi-adult. Look how close to this little thing is. It's a little male. This is the little male D-twin. That's my shoulder. So he's only about 3 feet from us. Hi. This is so special. Now, Charlotte, he's making his way back to the den. And your question was, and it's sorry, Bryan, it's a very good one. Do they go back into the den, into the hole, because of the signal that an adult gives them, or is it totally instinctual? Charlotte, I think you can see from the fact that they're all out of the den here, you can see that it must be entirely instinctual. They don't get an instruction. If they feel slightly threatened, if I was to clap my hands twice, they'd disappear down into the hole. It's their first thing that they do when they smell something odd, when something strange happens around the den. Okay, we're going to stay here for a little bit longer. In the meantime, let's head across to Scott. He's got some far larger animals. They've just had their drink.
Well, what a wonderful scene this is, as a parade of elephants march off whilst casually dust bathing themselves as they go. They have just finished drinking at Sydney's Waterhole, so we have sadly not timed this one very well. There's still one probably young bull lurking at the back there. Our timing was also no good to catch the brief glimpse of the Nkuhumas pride crossing our northern boundary, which they did while we were away, searching for other action. Yeah, that is a bull, and he too is enjoying the dust bathing. There's a hippo on the far left of the waterhole that I'd also like to show you before it disappears. It's almost completely out the water. Yeah, it is now completely out the water. And it's a rare sight. We don't get to see them out of the water too often. They have got the most bizarre anatomies, very, very short legs, but don't be fooled by what looks like quite a sluggish body. They can move at incredibly fast speeds and are immensely powerful animals. It's heading out the water a little bit earlier than they naturally would during the summer months because of the desperate states of affairs that we are in here regarding the drought. There's not much of food, and hippos are nocturnal grazers. They need to feed on about 40 kilograms of grass every evening, and at the moment they have to start that search early in order to acquire the necessary amounts of food, and even then they're probably not getting as much as they need at the moment. It's really, really tough times, especially for animals like the hippos that don't have a very wide diet. It pays not to be fussy out here. Oh, look at those elephants, just clouds of dust puffing up. Beautiful. Look at that. It's like a steam train chugging off into the distance. Yeah. Look at this. Oh, yes, they are making the most of the dry and dusty conditions. And elephants do enjoy dust bathing. I mean, I don't know how much it can actually help them. It's hardly going to prevent parasites from latching onto their skin, but it may have a somewhat cooling effect, almost like kind of like going into a health spa and getting pampered. It must just feel, if they dig the cooler sand from below the top layer of hot sand that would have been baked by the sun, it can have somewhat of a cooling effect. Of course, if they had have wet their bodies completely, which it doesn't look like those ones did, it would have a sticking effect onto that moist skin, but that is not the case. Good, we're gonna probably carry on now. I know the hyena den is active, but not entirely active, if that makes any sense. They're there, but they're not doing a huge amount, and hopefully that changes before it does get too dark. So why don't you hurry back there, and we're going to continue our search for anything else.
Right, everybody, I'm afraid we're going to have one last look at these hyenas, and then we're going to move out because it's got very dark here indeed, and I don't want to put pressure on them. They're about to go to sleep. Their bedtime story has been read to them while you were away. The little nursemaid there told them a story about Thomas the tank engine, who transported some hyenas once. I'm now really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, and so let us leave quietly. You can keep asking questions, of course, as we go. Now, Bryan, you're in Toronto, not on the back of the car, and you want to know if a leopard would do what the... Oh, hang on. There's something walking there. It is a hyena. It's one of the returning females, sorry. Bryan, I thought it might actually be the leopard that you were asking about. You said, would a leopard prowl around here in the same way that a hyena would, at least that a lion would? And the answer, Bryan, is yes, they probably would, but they'd be a lot more careful. If there were adults here, they wouldn't come anywhere near it. They can't take the risk of having a fight with an adult, so they wouldn't do that. But leopards are renowned for eating other predators, and especially canids. So they'll eat jackal quite often. They'll quite often take something like a civet. I cannot start the car. Don't worry, I will manage. There we go. Did you see that, Bryan? That was so clever of me. So amazing. So unbelievable. Now this is wonderful. We have a question all the way from India. How fantastic. Nitin or mitten? I'm just going to get Kirsty to spell it for me. Nitin or Nitin, you are asking all the way from India, why is it that hyenas look so awkward when they walk? Nitin, they're not awkward, it's just that their legs, their back legs are so much shorter than their front legs, and that makes them look awkward. because we're used to seeing cats and dogs with back and front legs that are the same length, and in fact most of the animals that we look at have got the same kind of design, hyenas look unusual. They also walk in a different gait. They walk with both left feet and then both right feet at the same time. Now, there are two other animals that do that, and one of them not all the time. Giraffes do it all the time. Elephants sometimes do it. In fact, most of the time, but sometimes they do it the other way as well. And so they walk differently from all the other animals, and that strange sloping back with the short back legs make them look very awkward as they move. Very nice question. Thank you, Nitin. Please keep writing to us. It's lovely to have you here from India, where, of course, some of the world's most spectacular wildlife lives. I've always thought, I've been to India once, but I've never seen any of the wildlife there. Tigers, of course, you get lions there, you get leopards there, you get a version of the wild dog. I think you get a bear, you get a number of deer species, you get, I think, a few antelope species, and I even think you get some wolves. So some really astonishing wildlife that you get in India. We're just pulling out on the same road that we came in on. See if those warthogs come thundering out of their den. I hope they won't now, because they'll struggle to find it again in the darkness. They seem to be fairly, hopefully safe in another burrow somewhere, free of the lions. Tried to eat them last night. Very unkind of those lions, of course, to try and eat a warthog. Well, if you're the warthog, that is. Now, Miss LeBobob, I hope I've got the pronunciation of your name correct. What are you laughing at, Brian? Miss LeBobob. Miss LaBobob. I haven't got the spelling, so I'm not sure if that's how it's said. You say the termite mound, when the hyenas vacate, will eventually become a home for something else, and so we should have a camera there regardless. I think that's a pretty good point, really, especially as we may see nocturnal things like Arathusa come and have a look there. I mean, we could do that, I suppose. It would be a question of resources and trying to get the cabling there and that sort of thing, and the receivers and that sort of stuff. But yes, it might be a good idea. I think you'll find, though, that that den will remain unoccupied when they leave it for some time, because it's a bit smelly. Wonderful question coming through here from a name I did not get. It'll come through again, I'm sure. Kirsten. Kathy. Now, Kathy, you want to know how we'd find the new den if and when they move that one. Would we track them? Would we try and sort of, how long would it take? Kathy, we could track them, and we probably would track them. It wouldn't take too long, depending on where the area was. So the last time they moved, Wium and I actually came across this den. They were still, half of the clan was in the other den, and some of them moved here, and Wium and I were on a walk, and quite by chance we heard a hyena calling. We saw one moving, we followed her at a distance on foot, and we found them at the den here. And so we found that one. Steph tracked them to the one before this because he saw lots of tracks around the place. And then once you've found their tracks going in and out of an area, of course, you know that if you find a decent-sized termite mound, you've got a pretty good chance of finding the hyena den itself. So that's how we'd find it. Very nice question. And in fact, another one that we found, you just check also, the first thing you do is start checking old sites, because they will reuse them. And I found, I think it was, in fact, it was Madam and her two newest ones. Initially, they were at the very unsalubrious neighborhood of the den or Philemon's cutline. And that's a fairly sort of small den, and often hyenas will give birth at a satellite den, keep the babies there for a few days, and then bring them towards the central den. And this is not a very large clan of hyenas. I think our viewers have managed to spot 17 adults, which I think is amazing. I can't tell the difference between all 17, but our viewers have managed to do that, and that's fantastic. But there are clans of up to 30 in this area, we think. certainly around Arathusa and Elephant Plains. They've got an enormous clan there of about 30 adults strong, which is huge. Right, we're going to go and pop past the Djuma Dam pan once more and then go up onto quarantine clearings and see what animals have come to spend their night in the clear, where they can see the lions or the leopards or the hyenas coming to get them. And while we do that, let us go across to Scott Dyson, who's finally left Sydney's dam, and we'll see what he's doing.
All right. So, we've got the spotlights out, and now we are searching for any little nocturnal critters that may start poking their heads out of their houses. Possibly a bush baby, maybe an owl. It's been a while since we've spotted an owl. Not sure where they're hiding at the moment. Or if we're lucky, some chameleons, maybe a scorpion. There's a host of different animals that are a lot easier to spot once the sun has gone down. Some because it's physically easier to see them, like the chameleons, who reflect a very pale shade in relation to the tree that they're sitting in. Or merely the ones that are nocturnal, that are hiding away during the daylight hours. I hope you enjoyed your last few minutes at the hyena den. I've just seen some eyes reflecting back at me. No, it's an antelope. There's a little duiker somewhere through that little gap, and we don't shine on the daytime animals. We will only, well, once we've established what they are, we don't want to cause them any unnecessary stress. And understandably, if you were a prey item and somebody shone a big bright light in your face and you couldn't see anything, then you would feel terrified. So we don't do that. And that's probably what is a large reason why we don't spend too long out after dark. It is not easy to film, and it can be intrusive if you are using the spotlights and a lot of lights to illuminate your subjects, and we don't want to do that too much, I guess. But it's standard practice on safari to come home in the evening with spotlights. And you'll probably find the game viewers are getting back a little bit later than we are at the moment, and they're probably also heading out a little bit later than we are at the moment, but we try and plan our safaris to be more daylight than night light. Oh, well, Mr. Henry has found one of the critters that I've been speaking of. You're in for a treat.
Look at that, everyone. Scott very kindly said that I found that small critter, which is a flap-necked chameleon. I did not. Bryan found it with his hawkish eyes that he managed to find that painted reed frog with earlier. And you can see, I mean, that is really an impressive spot. And if you're wondering which piece of that picture is the chameleon, it's the sort of minty green bit in the middle. It's a very small chameleon. It's only about 1.5 inches across. Resting quietly, thinks it is invisible, but is not. Isn't that pretty? Very few chameleons again this year. Not enough insects for them to eat. That's brilliant, Bryan. Well done. Okay, what we're going to do is sneak around the corner. There's a herd of elephants here. They're drinking at the pan. I'm going to move very slowly towards them, and I'm going to turn the lights off because we don't want to shine the light on them. That will make them upset. And I just want to spend a bit of time with them, perhaps in the dark. If they show any signs of discomfort, I'm just going to move away. But it is so nice. Elephants in the dark is what's very special. Oh, they're disappearing. They're going off across the dam. You just see their dark silhouettes going. And there are a few still drinking at the pan. We'll just move up there. Very slowly. Keep our distance. just switch off all the lights and see if you can hear them moving in the darkness. Bryan will probably be able to get a few of the silhouettes as they move across the dam here. Bryan, do you want to kill my light too? There we go. Now just listen. You can probably see it quite nicely on the dam camera. That's a water thickening calling. I know that's not a brilliant picture, but just try and absorb some of the atmosphere of these elephants. Gentle breeze blowing in. Lovely sounds of the birds. You hear a blacksmith plover calling their blacksmith lapwing. You can see the Ellie's trunks just swinging there. That's the water thickening calling. You may have been able to hear the elephant going, oh. And that was a signal for those three to move off and go and join the rest of the herd. Isn't that cool? Isn't that amazing? So they got a signal, a very definite call from the matriarch, who obviously said, it's time to go. Come on, you youngsters, let's move on, go and find something to eat. I think elephants in the dark is just one of the most special things to experience. You can hear them talking to each other. Low rumbles. And there is the fiery-necked nightjar. Okay, everyone, that's going to be it from Bryan and I this afternoon. Thank you very much for your comments and questions. You really do keep me going on these quiet drives. It's wonderful to talk to you and have your conversation as we go along. Thank you, Bryan, for your efforts today. I'm sorry I didn't find you anything particularly spectacular. Well done to the thumb. Thank you to Kirsty and Leanne in the final control. The hyenas are calling just to where Scott Dyson and VMR. We'll hand you over them for the last few minutes, and we'll see you in the morning at 0500. Bye-bye.
Well, what a great way to finish off what's been an entertaining safari. At least I think it's been entertaining. And you guys have the benefits of being on both vehicles, so you guys are definitely the winners. And strong finish by Mr. Henry, finding a chameleon and also enjoying the rumbling gurgles of some elephants, which is a great sound to hear. We are skirting along the western edge of quarantine in the hope that we may find some of the resident white-tailed mongoose that roam these plains at night. They're a nocturnal mongoose. Well, who knows, maybe Karula, the queen of Djuma. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jamie and Brent are on leave at the moment. So it's going to be James and myself as your only safari guides until about the 4th or 5th of March. But there is good news, and I'm not sure if James mentioned it, but there's another presenter who is here on interview. His name is Sam, and he is just arrived. He just arrived today. He's sitting in the final control at the moment, watching the safaris unfold from there and learning the intricacies of what exactly happens here. And he will be taking his first drive, I think, on Friday morning, and then another one on Saturday morning. So plan accordingly if you would like to enjoy being taken around by a new face. And he's slightly younger than all the current presenters, although I think he's a similar age to Jamie, so he's going to bring a youthful exuberance to the team, and we expect your usual friendly welcoming. So I just thought I'd let you know in advance that you are going to be pleasantly surprised by a new face. Well, guys, it is time to say goodbye And thank you guys so much for joining us on the safari, for sending through all your questions, comments, and thoughts. It's always wonderful. Wium, great work on camera. Kirsty and Leanne, thank you very much for all your work in the final control room. We will see you all on the Sunrise Safari.